Pirates. I have unlimited skill points. Chapter 21. Slave Ship. Luo Shu's eyes narrowed instantly after hearing this man's words. Luo Shu is not a saint, and he has no intention of being a saint. When he came to this world, he did not promote the equality of all beings, nor did he intend to overthrow dynasties and establish communism. As for slavery, he himself did not intend to break it. However, he had some ideas about the origin of slaves. Those captured pirate captains, crew members, or criminals who broke the law would become slaves and died in the hands of celestial dragons. He didn't feel anything bad about it, because they are evil. But if these slaves were civilians and were arrested, then this is obviously not acceptable to him. After hearing this man's words, Luo Shu's eyes also narrowed. Yes, it is a slave ship, we are an advance team, and there is a heavenly gold escorted by marine. Hearing Luo Shu's words, the man immediately said eagerly. Where did these slaves and the money come from? Luo Shu took a deep breath after hearing what the man said, and spoke to him. The money was given by several kings of West Blue, and most of these slaves are people related to the pirates. Hearing Luo Shu's words, the boss's eyes couldn't help but dodge a little. Say, where did they come from? Looking at this person's gaze, Luo Shu shook his hand fiercely. In an instant, Finger Pistol used it and punched a hole directly in the deck of this person's panel, looking at Luo Shu actually made a hole with his finger. The boss also knew how his subordinates died, but he was also more frightened, because in his consciousness, Finger Pistol in the 6 forms could not do this. Is it a 6-type master who ate devil fruit? Looking at Luo Shu, the boss's heart collapsed even more, and he kept whispering in his heart. These people are actually civilians. It's just that there were pirates staying in or out of the village where they were, so we caught them. Looking at Luo Shu, the boss didn't dare to lie, can only say in a low voice. Really? It was a civilian who had been captured. Luo Shu's eyes narrowed when he heard this, and the murderous aura filled the ship. Kill him. At this time, the boss closest to Luo Shu naturally felt the existence of murderousness. He knew that if he didn't fight hard, he would be dead. So he shouted and drew the sword from his waist for the first time, and his men attacked Luo Shu at the same time. Moonwalk, Tempest Kick Chaos. Looking at the opponent's offensive, Luo Shu jumped into the air in an instant, and then countless Tempest Kick descended from the sky to kill these people on the plate. He deliberately reduced the damage of Tempest Kick. Otherwise, relying on his Tempest Kick is too easy to hurt the slave below, and Luo Shu just controlled the power of this trick to the extent that it can hit the next level of the plate armor. But even so, this is completely beyond comparison with these people. The light blue slashes continued to kill these people, and the bodies of these people were also cut into 2, 4, or even countless segments under those slashes. With the end of the Tempest Kick Chaos, Luo Shu landed on the deck again, but the deck was already riddled with holes at this time. Those who had killed him at this time were all lying on the deck. In the distance, there were some Shen Yin who hadn't died yet and were still weak. But what made Luo Shu a little surprised was that the boss, worthy of being a person who had been in the New World, under this trick, although he was bloody, he did not fall. Ha 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 ha. I must kill you, I must kill you. Looking at Luo Shu, the man yelled at Luo Shu while panting. Don't worry, you have no chance in this life. Looking at this man, Luo Shu smiled and said flatly, but looking at his gaze, everyone knew that he had been murderous. You can't kill me. Marine is just a running dog of celestial dragons. I am also a running dog of celestial dragons. If you dare to kill me, celestial dragons and Joker will not let you go. Watching Luo Shu walk towards after losing himself, this person's pupils were constantly expanding and roaring loudly. But this can't shake Luo Shu's determination. Although Luo Shu is a marine, although he intends to mess around, it does not mean that he has to abandon his own thoughts for this level of identity. Go to hell. Looking at the man who screamed frantically in front of him, Luo Shu raised his right hand, and instantly Finger Pistol uttered. He only heard a pop. This man's head was directly blown by Luo Shu, and the body also knelt on the ground weakly. After taking out a bunch of keys from him, Luo Shu came to the bottom of the ship. However, when he saw the slaves who had been captured from the prison on the second underground floor, he couldn't help but twitch in his heart. He had to admit that these slaves were too miserable. Almost all of these slaves have injuries. After seeing Luo Shu, most of them hugged and trembled, and some women's eyes were dead gray. Needless to say, these guys absolutely killed or they have committed an unforgivable crime against them. But Luo Shu, after all, is not Lei Feng, so he didn't enlighten each of them, he just opened the prison and then released these people. Luo Shu also checked when he opened the prison. There were a total of 732 slaves in the ship. In addition, he also found more than a dozen corpses under the ship. It seems that these corpses should be the people on the ship. The masterpiece is out. And when these people saw the broken corpses on the deck, most of them cried. The one who cried was called a sad, and that was called a miserable one. Because they have lost too much, they have lost their homes, loved ones, and their status as civilians. Although Luo Shu has killed all these people now, they still have no future people. Looking at these people, Luo Shu sighed. He was really not good at ideological and political affairs. Allowing these people to cry on the deck for nearly a night, when Luo Shu woke up in a daze the next day, he found that everyone who had vented was much quieter. Compared to yesterday, their condition is slightly better today. Of course, this may also have something to do with Luo Shu opening the warehouse on the ship yesterday and letting them eat whatever they want. Although they were still like a piece of ashes and lifeless at this time, some of their faces were restored. This benefactor, thank you for your great kindness. Just as Luo Shu was thinking about what these people would do in the future, a few people walked over. You are. Looking at these people, Luo Shu couldn't help asking with some confusion. His Excellency, thank you very much for your rescue. Let me introduce you. My name is Cruz. I am the Knight Commander of the Kingdom of West Blue Saidape. The residents of this ship are basically people from our country. Hearing Luo Shu's words, a strong man with scars on his body glanced at the people behind him, his eyes were full of emotion. Knight Commander, then you should be a noble class, why are you here? Hearing this man's words, Luo Shu looked at him with some doubts. The Knight Commander was arrested because of us. Hearing Luo Shu's words, a few children playing nearby shouted loudly. Oh, Luo Shu raised his eyebrows when he heard the words of these children. That's it. I don't agree with the king's action, so I came forward and ran into the king, and then I was thrown here. He laughed bitterly. He didn't say anything, explained anything, just simply explained it. Here is the situation. Oh, that's it. After hearing this man's words, Luo Shu nodded, but then ignored him, and walked straight over. And this person saw that Luo Shu didn't want to treat himself, and respectfully retreated to the side. In fact, Luo Shu has some delusions of persecution. In other words, it is difficult for him to believe what a person said. He no longer believes in the original work, let alone this Cruz who has not appeared in the original work. It seems to Luo Shu that this cruiser came to thank you. There are two possibilities. First, I just want to see what I want to do to these people, and second, there are some yin dimmed, which is to see if I mean to manage these people. If not, then he pointed out that he was the Knight Commander. Then he said that he is for the country and the people, and maybe he will hand these people into his hands. In the current state of these people, even if they know that Cruz is a bad guy, they won't fight back. In this case, if this person sells them, or what happens, Luo Shu doesn't know. Luo Shu really didn't mean to care about these people, but this Cruz was not reliable, he had to observe it before. The following morning, Luo Shu did nothing but wandered around on the boat. There was still a lot of food prepared on the boat, enough for these people to eat, so Luo Shu didn't have to worry about it, and when he was walking, he also took the opportunity to find some people to ask about the situation of this cruise, and the result was the news. It seems that I really feel like a villain Kunzi's belly, because this Clushy really seems to be a saint with a heavy plot. This guy is the Knight Commander of the Kingdom of Saidap, and the #1 Master of the Kingdom of Saidap. The 8 virtues of the knight can be said to be perfectly reflected on him. In normal times, he did his best. This time the slave hunting team secretly arrested people. After he learned the news, he immediately dispatched and destroyed several slave hunting teams, but this angered Celestial Dragons, although this time Celestial Dragons did not come, but directly sent a soldier from the Marine branch over. He argued with the king based on reason, but Mao didn't use it. When he was about to organize those people to rescue those who were captured, he was defeated by a colonel of Marine and then sent to the slave ship together. And that king, in order to avoid making celestial dragons unhappy, he took the initiative to arrest the people in those villages and sent them to the slave ship in the name of fornicating pirates. And after this person arrived on the slave ship, he did not give up, and instigated several plans to get rid of those people, and then fled here, but unfortunately, he didn't succeed. Instead, he was beaten like that grandma, but I have to admit, his physical fitness is terrifying, and he is not dead. After confirming that this man was not crooked, Luo Shu gathered all the slaves together. From today, you are responsible for managing these slaves. By the way, do you have any places you want to go? I will send you to them. Said. We want to go to West Blue. We have to ask our king face to face, why are you doing this for? Hearing Luo Shu's words, Cruz stood up, yelled with excitement, and looked at him. Luo Shu really wants to say something, for what? Afraid of death. But he didn't say it, some of it was too shocking. Luo Shu didn't care about sending these people back to West Blue, but now they are in New World. If they want to go back to West Blue, they need to take a calm belt, but this ship is obviously not good. Woo, woo. While Luo Shu was thinking about how to get to West Blue, suddenly a warship with the marine flag on the sea level in the distance was driving over quickly. Seeing this when the ship was in the boat, the warship couldn't help but honked a few horns. Hearing the sound of the warship, Luo Shu also raised his head. If Marine was to help, it would not be a problem to send these people back to West Blue. But when he turned his head to look at other people, he found that the people around him were full of anger, staring bitterly at the ship. What's the situation? Luo Shu asked suspiciously, looking at the way these people looked. On that ship is Celestial Dragon's gold. Those are the hard-earned money of these civilians. That king not only captured his people and dedicated them to Celestial Dragons, but also dedicated their money to Celestial Dragons. After hearing Luo Shu's words, Cruz suppressed his inner anger forcibly and said with a serious face. That's it, then grab them. Luo Shu touched his chin after hearing what Clushy said, and then suddenly said with a smile. Not to mention the gold in the sky, even if celestial dragons look like in Luo Shu, what is it? Thinking of this, Luo Shu suddenly jumped up from the boat, stepped on the moonwalk in the air, and flew towards the boat. Since he decided to grab, he must act. At this time, a group of people was waiting at the port of Cake Island in the world. Headed by Charlotte Smoky, who escaped under Luo Shu's men. Even now, when she recalled that battle, she would feel like her body was standing upright, and that battle was really too dangerous. My lord, here comes. But the people around her didn't give her much opportunity to remember. After a person respectfully said something, a boat slowly came over not far away. As the ship approached the port, several people also carried Katakuri, who was heavily wrapped in the Hungarian mouth, and stepped out of the ship. Slowly oozing blood, it is a miracle that Katakuri can survive this time. Katakuri, mother wants to see you. Looking at Katakuri, who was still in bad condition at this time, Smoky sighed. Although she felt that this was not good in her heart, she still bit her scalp. Help me up. Hearing Smoky's words, Katakuri did not say much, but directly prepared to stand up, but as soon as he moved, the injury of Hungarian's mouth oozes blood again and saw this. In one scene, Smoky also stopped those who came over and wanted to help him. Let's go. A trace of unbearable flashed in his eyes, and Smoky sighed. But, Master Smoky, is it a bit impolite to go to see Mom like this? When Smoky asked Katakuri to go to see Charlotte Linlin like this, a person next to her stepped forward. Said a step in a low voice. You really, a lot of things. But his words didn't make Smoggy change his mind, but instead made Smoggy focus on him, and then Smoggy caught him suddenly, and then just twisted out of thin air. In a scream of screams, this person's body turned into a twist, and the water in his body was instantly wrung out, and turned into juices of different flavors flowing on the dock. When Smoky let go, the man had already turned into a corpse. He had been dead for a long time, so he threw him away, and Smoky took the person carrying the Katakuri stand towards the cake. Walked inside the island. And at this time, a person on the dock, while not being noticed, also quietly reported the matter with a phone worm. In less than a minute, this report has already appeared on Sengoku's desktop. Although Sengoku knew that Luo Shu was very strong, to be honest, he really didn't know that Luo Shu was so strong. After all, before that, Luo Shu's physical fitness was good, but that was only limited to the younger generation. He was not a fruit user, so all of his ability comes from his body. The body can't lie. Luo Shu's swordsman's body, even if it reaches ultimate, is very ordinary, even if his kendo talent is more terrifying than Hawkeye. But it has only been a few months since Luo Shu defeated Charlotte Cracker one after another, and now from the encirclement of Charlotte Smoky and Charlotte Katakuri, he hits Charlotte Katakuri again, and from these two look at the human situation. They did not announce that Luo Shu had been killed, so it is very likely that Luo Shu won. How to arrange for him after coming back? It's really a troublesome thing. Looking at the report in front of him, Sengoku said that he was troublesome, but everyone could see the smile in his eyes. At least for Luo Shu, he is quite satisfied. Originally, he still had some worries that Marine Qingwang would not answer the question, but now, he has been worrying too much. With Luo Shu in the younger generation, it is enough to suppress anyone. At this time, because of Luo Shu's strength, there is another one that is troubled by Charlotte Linlin. Prior to this, Charlotte Linlin was quite satisfied with her second son. Because before that, he hadn't been defeated once. But today's failure seems to be a bit too miserable. How strong is this Luo Shu? Looking at Charlotte Katakuri lying on a single shelf, and Charlotte Smoky with a plea of guilt standing next to him, Charlotte Linlin's eyes narrowed, said to the two with a bitter face. The strength of that person may be, only your existence at the level of your mother can surely suppress it. After gritting his teeth, Smoky raised his head fiercely, looking at the ant and said helplessly, this time they did not agree. Without care, they did their best. But unfortunately, I still lost to that guy. Oh, a top-notch such a young man. Raising her eyebrows, the ant was thinking about another thing. At this time, the top powerhouse in Charlotte Linlin's mouth is now falling on a warship. As he fell on the warship, Marine on the warship also took out a weapon and aimed at him for the first time. He was wearing a Marine uniform and using 6 styles, and they had to guard against it. After all, this is New World. After Luo Shu fell and looked at the surroundings, he didn't care. Instead, he stood still, patted his legs lightly, and then observed the ship. This ship is a very large warship. In Marine, officials above the school level can command a warship alone, but the size of the warship is completely different. School-level officials can command up to 1,000-ton class warships, and divide them into Commodore 3,000 tons, Rear Admiral 5,000 tons, and Vice Admiral 8,000 tons. In this era without aircraft carriers and battleships, the 8,000-ton warship that Vice Admiral can command is the largest warship in Marine's active service. Luo Shu once boarded Garp's warships, and Garp's warships were 8,000-ton class. At this time, this ship is also Vice Admiral class, currently Marine's largest ship. Ensign, report your name. When Luo Shu was looking at the ship, the people on the ship also reacted. At this time, a colonel came over, looking at Luo Shu with a bad expression, and listened. When he reached this person, Luo Shu just turned his head and looked at him. Ensign, Luo Shu. Glancing at the man jokingly, Luo Shu said with a crooked smile, and when he heard the name reported by Luo Shu, the man's brow wrinkled. He has heard of Luo Shu's name. To be precise, there are no people in Marine who have heard of Luo Shu's name. That can only be said to be a very small number. This young man who singled out Cracker wins is now very popular among Marines. The popular fried chicken, so the colonel did not blame him for not saluting himself. Luo Shu Ensign, what are you doing here? He gestured to the surroundings to put down his weapon and confirmed that Luo Shu was his own. The colonel said to Luo Shu, I'll help the civilians on that ship to retrieve their property. Pointing to the distant ship, Luo Shu said flatly, as if he was talking about something trivial. Hey, I heard you right, the property of those untouchables. Everything on this ship belongs to the great celestial dragons, including you, my dear little ensign. Just as Luo Shu's voice fell, the colonel here didn't know what to do. When taking measures, the cabin door opened, and a man walked out with the support of a few people in black suits. Colonel, do you allow dogs on your boat? Why did I hear a dog barking? But unfortunately, after this person finished speaking, Luo Shu didn't even look at him, but continued to speak to the colonel, but after this person listened to Luo Shu's words, his face changed instantly. You dare to scold me, do you know who I am? I am the steward of the great Lord Eliotby. My life is 1,000 times, 10,000 times, 1,000,000 times more expensive than yours. You dare to insult me, Ensign, it looks like you are impatient to live. Colonel, didn't you even dare to scold me just now? Don't take him down. Hearing Luo Shu's words, the colonel didn't dare to return anything, but the man yelled angrily. Hearing his words, the colonel's Zuiba moved, but he didn't do anything. Because he knows that he can't offend on either side. The steward of celestial dragons, although he also hates celestial dragons, he can't offend him. As for Luo Shu, Garp is behind him, and he is the strongest of the marine young generation. He can't afford to provoke either, so he can only stay still. Trash, trash, what are you waiting for? Take him down. Seeing that the colonel didn't move, the man shouted loudly. But at this moment, a black suit came to this man's ear and whispered, and after hearing this man's words, the man froze for a moment and then laughed. He understands why the colonel dared to ignore his orders. It turned out that this guy had 2 shots, but unfortunately, 2 more shots are useless, because he represents celestial dragons. No matter how strong the marine is, he is just his own thug. It turned out to be the one who defeated Charlotte Cracker. Ha 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 ha, no wonder you dare not move, but if you don't move, it doesn't mean I won't move him. Go, take him down for me, I want him to lick him the soles. Lick until they are clean. Looking at Luo Shu jokingly, the man said with a sour face, and the black suit behind him doesn't care about that. After hearing this person's words, these black suits immediately rushed towards Luo Shu, and looking at the people who rushed, Luo Shu picked up the knife at first, but after thinking about it, he put the knife down again. Don't get me wrong, he didn't dare to kill people, but because he felt that killing these things would dirty his weapon. With a momentary flick of his right leg, a tempest kick slashed directly. These people in black have never thought that Luo Shu dared to shoot himself. These people are actually very good players. Otherwise, how to be the bodyguards of celestial dragons? Among them, there are even 2 6th-level masters. But unfortunately, when they met Luo Shu, the 6th form they learned was shit, and as the blue slash flashed past, the 3 people who were scratched by the slash were instantly dismembered. Even if one of them has used Iron Body, it still doesn't use it. Seeing that Luo Shu really dared to do something, these people in black were also a little panicked. Some of the eyes hidden behind the sunglasses were at a loss, but Luo Shu didn't mean to let them go. Jumping under his feet, Shaving started instantly, and once again entered the mysterious world where the flow of time seemed to slow down, and at this time, his hands also nodded toward the heads of these people. To be honest, this is the first time Luo Shu has used Shave without being disturbed by the opponent's observation hockey. A stream of light flashed, and when Luo Shu came to the man who called the device just now, the heads of these people had just reacted. Puff 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 puff, a series of voices made these people's heads burst into flames in an instant. After countless blood clots, the body fell in a state of continuous blood spray. It was almost just a face-to-face, these black suits were all destroyed. At this time, Marine on the boat couldn't help swallowing, because they felt how strong Luo Shu was. Thinking about how strong Luo Shu was just now, they were frightened. What are you going to do? Are you going to rebel? Are you going to betray the world government? Seeing Luo Shu killed his men without a word of nonsense, the man couldn't help yelling in surprise and anger. Got up, but Luo Shu didn't talk nonsense with him. With a bang, Luo Shu kicked his feet directly on the person's stomach. This time he didn't use too much force, but even so, he kicked the person off the ground and knelt instantly. On the ground, with his hands covering his neck, his eyes protruding outward, while Luo Shu kicked him directly in the face at this time, kicking him over. Before he screamed, Luo Shu's feet has already stepped directly on his face. Don't you like to lick the soles of your shoes? Keep licking, if you dare to stop, I'll kill you. Seeing the person stepped on by him, Luo Shu narrowed his eyes and said with a serious face. You dare to hit me, do you know that I am, ah? But this person obviously didn't listen to what Luo Shu said. Although he was stepped on his face, he was still yelling loudly, and at this moment Luo Shu's finger pistol took the shot and directly hit his hand from a long distance as soon as finger pistol. The power of Luo Shu finger pistol was terrifying. This blow directly blasted the palm of his left hand out, and this person also screamed, shaking with pain. Do you know I'm not kidding? Now, lick. Looking at the person below, Luo Shu spoke to him in a very flat manner. This time this person didn't dare to say anything, so he could only pull out his tongue and lick it. When he got up, and seeing him starting to work, Luo Shu also looked at the colonel next to him. Do you have a phone bug here? Luo Shu asked the colonel after looking at him. Yes, go get one. Hearing Luo Shu's question, the colonel wouldn't say much. He directly told his hand to get a phone worm, and Luo Shu also took the phone worm and unplugged the Sengoku one. The number of the special dedicated line. Hey, I'm Sengoku. As the number was broadcast, the phone worm's face changed a bit like Sengoku, and Sengoku's voice came from there. Marshal, it's me. Luo Shu responded with a smile upon hearing Sengoku's words. Luo Shu, good boy, you really are fine. I just received a report saying that Katakuri and Smoky among the 4 stars of Charlotte Linlin desserts have also been defeated. I am still thinking, where are you going? That's it. Hearing Luo Shu's voice, Sengoku was obviously excited on the phone. Marshal, I don't need to worry about the security issues on my side for the time being. I have 2 things to tell you when I make this call. One is to report safety, and the other is about celestial dragons. Seeing Sengoku finished speaking, Luo Shu also adjusted his voice, and then spoke seriously to Sengoku on the phone. After hearing Luo Shu's words, Sengoku over there couldn't help being silent. Because he doesn't know what to say now. To be honest, where there is light, there will be darkness. Although the world government has ruled the world on the bright side, it has maintained a certain degree of peace in the world. But this is not without cost. The price is that the descendants of 20 kings appeared in this world. In this world, from the marine to the pirates, plus the civilians in the middle, it can be said that 99.99% of the people are very dissatisfied with these guys and hate them. Of course, it is not ruled out that there are some people who just like to be doglegs, deadly traitors, to serve these people, so as to fight for some leftovers from these people, to show their strength and to show off their power. If Sengoku has something to Luo Shu's growth that he does not want him to contact Luo Shu as soon as possible, it is celestial dragons. The reason why he sent Luo Shu to New World for his first mission was to give Luo Shu a face, because New World didn't seem to cause much trouble to Luo Shu. Luo Shu was promoted after he came back. Second, it is because celestial dragons live in the holy place Mariajoy, which is very close to Sabayati Tikan Island, but far away from New World. But he didn't expect that Luo Shu would encounter the slaves robbed by celestial dragons and the transport ship of heavenly gold in this situation. He clearly heard something from Luo Shu's words. Although Luo Shu said it in a reporting tone, Sengoku heard it. He didn't plan to just report it like that. As a marine, one must have his own justice in his heart. And Luo Shu's justice, for the time being, should not be the benevolence of women, nor an absolute order, but the justice of the sensible civilian faction. It is commonly known as being out of sight and out of mind, but if he sees it, then he will definitely take care of it. At this time, Luo Shu made a balance in Sengoku's heart. He was thinking whether it was worth offending celestial dragons because of Luo Shu. This idea only weighed less than a second, and he had made up his mind. Luo Shu is now the strength of Luo Shu, the future potential of Luo Shu. Not to mention the marshal level, the admiral level is fixed on the board. Just such a person, let alone offend celestial dragons, even if he kills celestial dragons, he will try to help him wipe his fart. After all, for the world government, this kind of combat power is also rare. Are there celestial dragons on board? Sengoku asked Luo Shu on the phone worm after hesitating for a few seconds. No, but there is a housekeeper called a messy saint. Hearing Sengoku's words, Luo Shu looked at the colonel and found that the colonel shook his head and said that there were no celestial dragons, and then said to Sengoku. Marshal Sengoku, I'm the steward of Eliopu Saint, Marshal Sengoku, save me. Hearing what Luo Shu said, the steward at his feet also screamed desperately. But it was Luo Shu's finger pistol, who greeted him, hitting him directly on the right hand. As his painful and trembling screams reached Sengoku, Sengoku had no other thoughts. Without celestial dragons, it wouldn't matter. I don't know anything. I only know that you are safe. If you are okay, go back to the headquarters early. This time you have shown your combat power and are ready to award the title. After speaking indifferently, Sengoku went straight hang up the phone worm. And what was hanging up was the last life of the housekeeper. Hearing Sengoku's words, Luo Shu's right foot instantly slammed on this guy's dog's head. And watching Luo Shu's actions and Marshal Sengoku's words, the colonel here couldn't help being extremely embarrassed, and now they really don't know what to do. They will definitely not finish the task, because the people sent by celestial dragons are dead, and what will they do next? Luo Shu won't kill them. Drive the boat over, and then you and the people on the boat will change boats. I'm going to West Blue. As for you, figure out your own way. After a glance at the people behind him, Luo Shu said calmly, and heard Luo Shu what I was talking about. The colonel here also sighed helplessly, that's all. Following Luo Shu's command, the ship quickly approached the ship over there, and when those people saw the marine on the ship, they were shocked, especially the warrior Captain Cruz, because he was given by marine. Suppressed. But when Luo Shu came forward and asked the people on both sides to change boats, although they were curious, they still obeyed Luo Shu's instructions and all got on the boat. After all the slaves arrived on the boat, Luo Shu gave the order directly. The boat drove in the direction of West Blue again. My colonel, what are we going to do next? Looking at the ship moving further and further away, Marine looked at the colonel helplessly and asked him in a low voice. You ask me, how do I know, huh? Look at contacting the G5 base, we can't survive in this sea area alone. The colonel slapped Marine's head, and the colonel roared helplessly. What can he do? He is a West Blue colonel, and he is also desperate. I just hope that the people in the legendary G5 fortress will not die. Luo Shu doesn't know whether the people at G5 base will die or not, but after he got on the ship, he directly ordered everyone to count the heavenly gold in the ship. Then the bags of money and jewelry were taken out by these people. The money in this is not only from the kingdom of Setape, but also from the kingdoms of West Blue's other alliances. The total amount is about 3 billion. After the money is returned to Mariajoy, 1 billion of it will go to Elliot Hu Sheng's home, so he sent someone over to escort it. And there are 2 billion, which will enter the kabuto of other people. Although it is not much, it is not too small. Luo Shu looked at the money and considered whether to take some back as living expenses. Shi Cruz walked back to the deck with a look of embarrassment. Master Luo Shu, there are some things here that you need to decide. Looking at Luo Shu, Cruz said to him hesitantly. What? Discovered devil fruit? Luo Shu smiled and asked after hearing Cruz's words. After all, it is more valuable than these things, and it may only be devil fruit. No, but the value may be about the same. With a sigh, Cruz whispered. Hearing what he said, Luo Shu followed him to the bottom of the warship with curiosity. The gatekeeper opened the door on the inner floor, and Luo Shu saw many cells in his eyes, but none of the cells in these cells were human. No, it should be said that they are not humans, but they all have human forms. Looking at these creatures in prison, Luo Shu's hands trembled unconsciously. He had some accidents originally. Why are the slave ships of celestial dragons transporting ordinary people? It turns out that ordinary people are here. At this time, in Luo Shu's sight, he was holding countless creatures in the former prison. But these creatures have one characteristic, that is, these are not normal human beings. There are many humanoid creatures in this world, which can also be said to be a variant of human beings, and the number of these variants is naturally incomparable with human beings. According to different races, the price is also different. For example, among the auction houses on Sabayati Tikan Island, humans are the cheapest, with a starting price of only 500,000 yuan, while the little humans and mink skins are the legendary Fur Clan, Handlong Clan, Footlong Clan and Snakehead Clan. The starting price is 700,000 baileys. The Murlocs are like Murlocs Arlong and Jinbei. The starting price is 1 million baileys. These Murlocs seem to be the perfect coolies among many people. The power of an ordinary Murloc is more than 10 times that of a normal human. Although it is difficult to tame, if they are obedient, they are indeed the best candidates for coolies. Especially if you want to build something in the sea. The price of the giants is much higher. The price of male giants starts at 50 million baileys, and the price for females is cheaper, about 10 million baileys. However, this is only the starting price, and the real transaction price must be more than 10 times the lowest. Because the fighting power of the giants doesn't need to be said much, and the giant kingdom is not that easy to provoke. But if you talk about the most expensive things, you have to say it is a merman. The starting price for men of the mermaid tribe is very cheap, only 1 million Baileys, because these men are of no use, they can only talk to fish, and use them to domesticate fish-cune, but there is no problem of overfishing in this world, so the men of the merman tribe are not worth money. But women are quite valuable. A mermaid's female fish starts at 70 million yuan. But this is only the starting price. Imagine the price at the auction of Kami on Sabayati Tikan Island a few years later. Although Celestial Dragons offered a premium of RMB 500 million, it is not impossible to bid higher, just because the photograph was Celestial Dragons, so no one dared to increase the price. In particular, we can see how profitable human trafficking is in this world. At this time, in front of Luo Shu, these races were installed in cages of all sizes. Luo Shu glanced at it. There were murlocs, humans, long-handed tribes, long-legged tribes, and even in the distance Luo Shu saw a little giant. This little giant looked like a girl. The height of the little giant sitting on the ground was all much taller than Luo Shu. With his head down, Luo Shu couldn't see them clearly. It may be because people of these races are very valuable, that's why they are kept here. For the time being, they should not have been greatly harmed. Seeing the lifelessness of these people, Luo Shu walked to the prison where they were being held. Finger pistol. After Luo Shu's fingers volleyed a few times, the trivial heads exploded directly. Hearing the sound, these detained talents raised their heads and looked at the sound coming from them. Direction. Okay, you are free now. There are still a few small boats on this boat. If you want to go somewhere, just leave by yourself. Seeing the eyes of these people looking at him, Luo Shu was too lazy to sort them out. After speaking directly to them, he turned and left here, and Cruz also left with Luo Shu. Soon after they all left here, the first person walked out of the prison. This is a murloc. The murloc's character is grumpy and powerful, but obviously, he has been tortured by these people and has no mood. When he walked on the deck, they found that Luo Shu really didn't want to catch him. Meaning, he walked slowly to the side of the boat, then plunged into the sea and disappeared quickly. It may have heard the sound of water, and other murlocs and mermaid people also walked out one after another. After coming out, the merman tribe basically plunged into the water and swam away, and the merman tribe more or less nodded to Luo Shu, and then left after expressing gratitude. After these people left, the long-hand tribe, long-legged tribe, and fur-riding riders also came out of it. They were much more polite. They expressed their gratitude to Luo Shu before they came to crew. Under the arrangement of the taxi, they left together in a small boat. They still have a hard time believing in humans, so no one chose to go to West Blue with them. After everyone had left, Luo Shu found that the little giant had not come out. This made Luo Shu a little curious. Walked back to the space under the plate armor. Sure enough, when Luo Shu walked in, all the prison doors were opened, but only the little giant was still squatting there holding his legs. Hey, you are free, why don't you go out? Luo Shu looked up at the little giant and called to her. I have nowhere to go. Hearing Luo Shu's words, the little giant lifted his head slightly, and then a face of allure appeared in Luo Shu's line of sight. As far as the long portrait is concerned, the long one is indeed very beautiful. It doesn't exist in women who are too tall and will split. This girl is very beautiful, with big and watery eyes, high-tinged nose, small zuiba, and a little messy long black hair. After being scattered behind his head, the long one is really pretty. Looking at this face, even Luo Shu couldn't help being stunned for a while. This face was very domineering. What does it mean that there is nowhere to go? But fortunately, as a 30-year-old man, Luo Shu still has a strong control over his inner heart, and he quickly drew from that superb appearance. Come out, then coughed awkwardly, and asked the girl. I have no home, no relatives. After hearing Luo Shu's words, the girl struggled a bit, then whispered about her story. Her story is not too bizarre, but it is very tortuous. After listening to what the girl said, Luo Shu was a little depressed. Sometimes this person does happen to him, and he will be disturbed by the emotions of the people around him. In fact, it seems to this girl, where is she caught as a slave? In fact, she doesn't care, the only thing she cares about is that she has a place of her own. The girl is not a born giant. She was born when she was young, and she was just an ordinary person, but she didn't know what illness she had or what happened. Her body was getting bigger and bigger. As far as Luo Shu knows, it seems the same is true of Charlotte Linlin, one of the 4 emperors. It's just that this girl doesn't have Charlotte Linlin's bulimia, she just grew up, nothing more. According to what the girl said, she was 1.5 meters old when she was 5 years old, and 3.2 meters when she was 10 years old. This year she is 19 years old and her height has grown to 5 meters. Although according to the doctor's words, her height will no longer grow, but this height also makes her have no shelter. The height of 6 meters is actually very embarrassing. If it is in the kingdom of giants Elbaf, it is actually a dwarf, because a normal giant must grow to 12 meters to be normal. Even if a woman is slightly shorter, she has to grow to about 10 meters. 5 meters is really too short. She can't survive in Elbaf at her height. The height of 6 meters is too high in other places. Even if West Blue is close to New World, there is no way to accept her. Her parents abandoned her when she was 12 years old. She wandered around for 2 years and then was taken in by an orphanage. Unfortunately, after the old dean passed away last year, the person who took over the orphanage it was sold. She tried hard to fight, but after being caught by those people, she sold it to a slave trader. The slave trader also took a fancy to her perfect long portrait, so he dedicated her to celestial dragons. She has been in this small cell for a long, long time. Her background made her have no motivation to fight, because now she has nowhere to go. Her parents have abandoned her, and the only place she regards as home, the orphanage, has also disappeared at this time. It's gone. It seems that only she is superfluous in the world, so she would sit there holding her knees, because for her, there is no difference between sitting here and going out. Because she didn't have a place to go, and she didn't have anyone to miss and want to meet. After hearing the girl's story, Luo Shu grinned too. He is not a sentimental person, nor is he an ideological committee. He does not do ideological work. So although he has some sympathy for what happened to this girl, he doesn't know what to say, so he feels a little bit tricky. Otherwise, you just follow me first, Luo Shu said to the girl after hesitating for a long time. Now his main task is to send these people back to West Blue. As for when they return to West Blue, they will go. What to do? It is estimated that he is going back to Marine headquarters. After all, the most important item on his current itinerary, observation hockey, he hasn't learned yet. Armament hockey can be released temporarily, and I will definitely learn it later, but his slash, which is also a special energy composition, will also cause a certain amount of damage to Logia, so the armed is not too anxious, but it is sincere to see and hear. Is very anxious. He had already beaten his opponent twice in a row, but he was fled by the opponent because he hadn't seen or heard the enemy. He didn't want this kind of thing to happen a third time. So he doesn't have much time and energy to work as a babysitter for this girl, or find someone to accept her. If that's the case, then follow him back to Marine. It is estimated that with his strength, bringing someone into Marine should not be a problem. Really, is it really okay? After hearing Luo Shu's words, the girl suddenly raised her head and asked excitedly. It shouldn't be a big problem, but you can't be idle, what will you do? Luo Shu coughed awkwardly, then asked in a low voice, looking at the girl's beautiful face. I know a lot. I do laundry, cook, and clean. I have a lot of energy. Hearing Luo Shu's words, the girl introduced herself with excitement. Well, washing clothes, cooking, also okay. As for the strength, I will teach you some fighting methods in the future, you have to practice harder. After thinking for a while, Luo Shu looked at the girl and said seriously, listening when Luo Shu was really willing to accept herself, the girl nodded excitedly. By the way, I haven't asked what your name is. Since the decision has been made happily, Luo Shu didn't say much, and asked the girl straightforwardly. My name is Ingrid Marjorna, and Marjorna is the surname of the grandmother who adopted me. As for my original surname, I don't remember it anymore. Hearing Luo Shu's words, Ingrid Marjorna once said happily. Okay, take a shower with me, and then see if there are any clothes you can wear. He clapped his hands, Luo Shu waved to her, and then the girl stood up directly. The girl's height is indeed there is a little horror. At a height of 5 meters, those slender, white and tender and very beautiful long legs must be about 3 meters long. As soon as she stands up, Luo Shu is right on the thigh. Look up, Luo Shu, his face blushed. Although the girl's clothes were still intact, Luo Shu just stood under her. When he looked up, although the lower body could not see much, but the upper body, there were two indescribable existence, so she put her clothes on top. When I get up, what Luo Shu is watching below is a real thing. Although Luo Shu is not someone who doesn't understand anything. After all, he has watched so many island country literary, action, and romantic idol dramas, but the impact of such images on him is still there were some big ones, but seeing Luo Shu's unnaturalness, Ingrid didn't express anything, just bit her lips gently and stood still. She didn't mind that she was seen by Luo Shu, but she was a little bit happy, because if Luo Shu was really interested in her body, it might not be a bad thing for her. Because at least it seemed to her that she was more and more stable by staying with Luo Shu. With the girl, Luo Shu walked out of the cell. When the 5-meter-high girl appeared, the people outside were really shocked, but after seeing that Luo Shu brought it out, they all put the Zui closed up. Although they are very convinced of Luo Shu, their fear will not change because of that. They still deliberately stayed away from this girl, and Luo Shu and this girl didn't care about it, because for Luo Shu, these people were just saved by him. For this girl, Luo Shu is all she has. After washing, Luo Shu took the girl for a good meal. As for the clothes, although there is no one for her to wear, the crews outside is already organizing women to sew clothes for the girls. Although they are a little afraid of Yingge Li, but the respect for Luo Shu is from the heart. Sengoku, you marshal don't want to do it. What does Luo Shu do? A mere ensign dare to rob Celestial Dragon's heavenly gold, but your marine has no response. What do you mean? Elliot Pusan has ran into our office to make a noise, and we want to give an explanation. Sengoku, it's time for you to give us an explanation. In the sacred place Mariajoy, in a huge conference room at the highest point of the world government building, there are 5 old people looking at Marshal Marine Sengoku with a serious face, and beside him is the world government building. The military headquarters of Kong. At this time, including Kong, the faces of the people in it are quite ugly. Robbing the heavenly gold, this is not much worse than fighting celestial dragons, because this is also a matter that greatly weakens the face of celestial dragons. Logically speaking, Admiral should be sent to clean up Luo Shu immediately, but Sengoku directly suppressed the matter. After learning about the situation, everyone in the world government, including 5 elders and Kong, was going crazy, and directly ordered Sengoku to come to the world government to explain it. It would be straightforward, otherwise. The position of this marshal had to choose another person. Everyone is finished, but Sengoku was very calm at this time. He just stood there, listening to the constant roar of 5 elders in front of him, without even showing any expression. You, what is your attitude? Have you not recognized your mistakes? Hearing Sengoku's words, a short old man couldn't help shouting loudly. Okay, let him finish first, I really want to hear what he has to explain. Looking at the way his companion looked, an old man with a long knife waved his hand to stop his companion's anger, instead looked at Sengoku and asked. He defeated Cracker, Smokey and Katakuri, and he is only 20 years old. Looking at these people, Sengoku said flatly. What, Cracker, Smokey, Katakuri, that Charlotte Linlin's child? Hearing Sengoku's plain words, the 6 people in the house couldn't help but froze for a while, and then an old man said excitedly. Yes, completely crushed defeat. His kendo talent is even more terrifying than Hawkeye. Looking at the few people in front of him, Sengoku said plainly. Such a talent, are you sure it's not the next Monkey D. Dorag? After thinking for a while, an old man said hesitantly. At least when we didn't persecute him, he wouldn't. This kid is very indifferent. He doesn't think too much about what he shouldn't think about, but he's very smart. I can see if nothing happens. He is very willing to stay in Marine. In a few years, he will become our most powerful admiral combat power. And this time, to be honest, it's not really a big problem, is it? Slave boat, I don't think that has anything to do with the heavenly gold. While talking, Sengoku pushed his glasses a bit, and then spoke seriously. Celestial dragons may be mostly brain disabled, but the world government can rule the world. They will not be too brain disabled. An admiral level may even be able to advance to the marshal level combat power in the future. If it is just because the road is uneven, it is saved. A group of slaves who were captured as civilians, and then killed a celestial dragon steward, were to be pushed to the opposite side, then this transaction is not worthwhile. No matter what is the most valuable? It's talent. The current Marine does have some blues and yellows. The current Marine can be said to be in the most prosperous state. Martial Sengoku is still on the tip of the peak. Garp, who also has martial-level combat effectiveness, is still strong. Kuzan and Sakazuki in the Three Admiral have already touched the half-step marshal's threshold, which can be said to be a rare and strong. But Sengoku and Garp will always get old. Kuzan and Sakazuki's disharmony is always a hidden danger. Facts have proved that this hidden danger really broke out after a few years. The two marshals of the world government retired. Kuzan went to be a pirate. Akainu supported Marine by himself, and there was a less obedient Pelusalino under him. For this reason, he also specially recruited troops from the world, and Fujitora smiled. And Green Bull. As long as Marine has talents that can be topped, he doesn't need to recruit troops from the world. Under such circumstances, the emergence of Luo Shu undoubtedly solved a big troublesome problem. So after hearing what Sengoku said, the other 6 people present were all in a state of contemplation. Kong was born in Marine, and naturally knew that such a talent should never be let go, and the other 5 people were also thinking. Celestial dragons face problems or their own strength problems. Go tell him, and be honest with me in the future. After a while, a 5 elders raised his head and said bitterly at Sengoku that they couldn't give up such fighting power. The most important thing is that Luo Shu does not have conqueror's haki. He is not the kind of person who has great ideas and wants to change the world. Under such circumstances, it is absolutely impossible for them to force such a person because of a celestial dragon steward. Go to the opposite. Yes, he looked at the 6 people in front of him respectfully and saluted. Sengoku was about to leave, but before he left, he was stopped again. Wait a minute, Sengoku, this time he comes back, what kind of officer are you going to give him? Looking at Sengoku's back, the little old man who spoke first opened his mouth. Although his strength has surpassed most vice admiral, but I think his qualifications are still relatively small, so I am going to ban him as rear admiral. This is also Sengoku's decision after thinking a lot. Fighting power, at least can't make Luo Shu feel wrong. This time he killed the people of celestial dragons after all. It can't be justified without giving some punishment, and he should be reduced to Commodore. He waved his hand a little boredly, and the short old man said with a look of disgust. Yes. After hearing the old man's words, Sengoku also nodded respectfully, and then left directly, and after he left, Kong followed him. You said, if that young man is so capable, can he be recruited into CP0? After the 2 of them left, one of the 5 elders said. From what he did, the chances are not high. Let him grow up in Marine first. Marine also needs a new flag character to appear. But his voice just fell. Another old man said directly. Luo Shu at this time naturally didn't know that someone was discussing him. He was sitting on the deck at this time, looking at the reappearing wind above his head, and laughed. In fact, the calm belt is not very wide. This is the truth. According to the description on Luo Shu's chart, the calm belts on both sides of the Grand Line and New World are basically straight. I don't know how it was formed. Anyway, one side of the calm belt. Since historical records, this calm belt has always existed. According to the record on the marine chart, the width of the calm belt is uniform, only 700 nautical miles. 1 nautical mile is about 1.8 kilometers or more, which is equivalent to 1300 kilometers. If this is a highway, if it takes half a day, time is up. But the speed of the ship in this era, ha. Luo Shu's boat is a Vice Admiral class boat. It's fast in marine. It can run about 15 knots per hour. If it breaks out, it can rise to 25 knots under the wind and water, for example, from naval. When headquarters goes to Enies lobby or the big prison, there is such a high speed, which is not usually available. The cruising speed on the sea is only 15 knots, but it will drop to 12 knots in the calm belt. One section is 1 nautical mile, and 1 hour runs 12 nautical miles, which is a total of 700 nautical miles. Even if you have been running, you have to run for more than 58 hours, not to mention having to go around the island, around the shallows, etc., driving out of the calm belt in 3 days, which is normal. In the past 3 days, the people on the boat were actually very depressed. First, there was no wind, so they felt a little boring and panic. Second, it was because of sea kings. There is a sea stone under Marine's boat, which means that sea kings who rely on feeling will treat this boat as a part of the sea and will not attack them actively, so there are always some sea kings that are more leathery, and they always like it. Come try it. On the third day after Luo Shu entered the calm belt, a sea kings attacked their boat. Although Luo Shu was killed and made into a roux to eat, they still scared the people on the boat. It's so choppy that they have been a little frightened these days. But okay, now it's finally West Blue. But after arriving at West Blue, it's actually time to say parting. Luo Shu had already told Cruz when he was on the ship that he was not a nanny, so after arriving in West Blue, he would find a marine branch and then find a ship to return to the headquarters. As for these people, Luo Shu will leave most of the heavenly gold and food, and let them find a place to start again. Although Cruz is very reluctant to Luo Shu, there is no way. Master Luo Shu, do you really want to leave? As the boat entered West Blue, in the evening, to celebrate that it was no longer so depressing, everyone specially organized a banquet. After these days of getting along, those people didn't I'm afraid of Ingrid again, but Ingrid is obviously still afraid of them, and now the only possibility Ingrid is not afraid of is Luo Shu. In the middle of the banquet, Cruz came over with the wine glass, looked at Luo Shu reluctantly and said, "Lead them well and protect them. Not every time you have such good luck to meet me, if you encounter slave traps or pirates again, you will rely on you." Looking at Cruz's eyes reluctant to give up, Luo Shu smiled and patted, and then said flatly, "Of course, sir, I will definitely fight my life to protect them." Hearing Luo Shu's words, Cruz also slapped Hungarian's mouth with a loud sound, and said with a serious face, "Ha ha ha ha, is that reasonable?" After punching him again, Luo Shu smiled and drank all the beer in his glass, and then raised his head to look at the moon again. It was really a good day today. The banquet was very late, and many people drank too much. Then they supported each other and entered the cabin to rest. Unknowingly, the moon had climbed to the top of the ship, and with a slight noise, Luo Shu and Ying Jerry didn't know when she had already disembarked. They boarded the largest boat on the side of the ship. In the past few days, Luo Shu has been remodeling this small boat. Although it is still that big, at least it can be dirty on the sea. As Luo Shu and Ingrid arrived on the boat slowly moved towards the distance. Drove over. At this time, Luo Shu was checking what he needed in the cabin of this small boat. Luo Shu still prepared adequately this time, with charts, eternal pointers, a lot of food, fresh water, and of course, and most importantly, 300 million Bailey's banknotes. Although Luo Shu is not a person who is greedy for money, no one is too rich. In particular, Luo Shu is still a decent pauper of 800. Thinking about returning to naval headquarters in the future, he not only has to raise himself, but he also has to raise Ingrid. It is inevitable to take some money. He didn't feel that there was anything wrong. After all, he saved the lives of those people, and the money on the boat, logically speaking, was also his. He could leave them 1.7 billion Baileys in money. It's already very generous, okay. After confirming again and again that things were enough for himself and Ingrid to sail at sea for a month, Luo Shu relaxed, and when he turned his head, he saw Ingrid, who was sleepy and confused. Although Ingrid is very large, she has to admit that this girl is really good looking. Not to mention, just this long portrait of her. As long as you return to the Earth and go to that station, she will be the most, and top-notch internet celebrity. That face is really an overwhelming country. Is basically the most standard template among the major plastic hospitals. Except for her face, the other parts of her body are also perfect. The white skin is horrifying, and the arms and legs are of that kind of particularly beautiful and slender type. If you don't consider that arm is as long as Luo Shu. As for the two indescribable existences, Luo Shu has seen it more than once. If her size is reduced to about 1.7 meters, it is estimated that the model should be D or E level, and now she is so big, then too, a little horror. Master, are you finished? Maybe because she felt Luo Shu watching her, Ingrid yawned and then sat up with a confused expression. Well, it's done, okay, go to sleep. After smiling at Ingrid, Luo Shu stood up, but after standing up, he was suddenly stunned. because he found that this boat, it seems, is a little too small. This ship was originally a lifeboat, so this ship has a cabin, the wheelhouse is also here, the warehouse is also here, and of course, the lounge is also here. Luo Shu used to think about how to remodel it. After all, he lived separately from Ingrid on the boat, so he forgot to have another room. Now, it seems a bit embarrassing. Thinking of this, Luo Shu wanted to discuss how to live with Ingrid. But when he turned his head, he found that Ingrid was already taking off his gear at this time. As she took off the huge coat, the two indescribable things and the last piece of equipment to protect those two things were revealed in an instant. Go to sleep, I have some things to do on the deck. Seeing Ingrid as if he wanted to continue taking off, Luo Shu stiffly said to Ingrid, and then he was about to turn around, leaving, but at this moment, Ingrid's hand suddenly stretched over. After grabbing Luo Shu's clothes, he immediately used force to pull Luo Shu directly. Then Luo Shu felt that he had hit two soft things with one head, and when he looked up, there were two things that could not be described, and two things that could never be described. At this time, he was facing himself, meaning it was just fine. The elephant is saying, yes, you are lying on them. When Luo Shu was about to struggle, suddenly Ingrid hugged Luo Shu. Lord, Master, do you like it? Mine. Now there is no one else, you can enjoy it. Ingrid's face was flushed with shame at this time, and she didn't dare to go. Look at Luo Shu's appearance, but still bite the bullet and said to Luo Shu. That's not right, this plot, I said, who taught you this? Looking at Ingrid's appearance, Luo Shu's old face was rarely red, and then he stammered to her. Yes, the sisters on the boat taught me. They also taught me a lot. Does the master want to try it? After hesitating, Ingrid seemed to have plucked up courage, lowered her head and looked towards Luo Shu, and Luo Shu at this time is stupid. This is the first time he has encountered such a thing. What's more, such a body shape makes him a little bit at a loss. Looking at Luo Shu's stunned expression, Ingrid picked up Luo Shu with both hands, then gently unloaded Luo Shu's equipment, and looked at a place that had been prepared. She went straight with the past. To be honest, Luo Shu is not a rookie. He has also had girlfriends and visited the shops of professional big sisters, but this is the first time he feels this feeling. Because Ingvar can not only take care of the place that should be taken care of, she can also take care of the two places that should not be taken care of. Ingrid is a standard 9-headed beauty, but even so, the huge head also has at more than 60 centimeters. Luo Shu hugged her head and Shuang's legs were on her shoulders. This was a different feeling. Let alone try, he didn't even think about it. After such an attack lasted more than 10 minutes, Luo Shu stopped. After finishing everything carefully and clearly, Ingrid put Luo Shu in her mouth and looked at Luo Shu with satisfaction. From Luo Shu's expression, she could see that Luo Shu was very satisfied. As long as Luo Shu happy, as long as Luo Shu is satisfied, then he is also happy and satisfied. No, I have to take revenge. After about a few minutes, Luo Shu sat up on Ingrid and looked at Ingrid in front of him. Luo Shu said seriously. Then, Master, what do you want to do? Hearing Luo Shu's words, Ingrid looked at him suspiciously, because the women on the boat didn't think Luo Shu could really have anything to do with Ingrid, so they did not agree. Did not teach the next. But with Ingrid's trust in Luo Shu, she would not refuse what Luo Shu would do. After watching Luo Shu slide down for a while, a smile appeared on her face. Before Ingrid could figure out what was going on, a sting rushed directly into her mind. No words for a night, this is the truth, because Luo Shu and Ingrid really didn't say anything. Some auxiliary particles and the like are naturally not counted. When the morning sun was shining on the boat, there was no movement in the boat. It was not until the morning turned into the morning that Luo Shu and Ingrid in the boat slowly woke up. When Luo Shu woke up, he found that he was sleeping on Ingrid's body like this, with an indescribable existence resting on his head, and one of Ingrid's legs was sandwiched between his two legs. The two of them just appeared in the sun like Hong Guago. It was really a bit embarrassing. Feeling the shy and trembling feeling of Ingrid under him, Luo Shu also sat up with a bright smile, and then left. When he came down, when he saw the beach of bloodline on the boat board, to be honest, he was very entangled. Now his heart is both proud and inferior. Needless to say, proud. He is quite satisfied with his model. This is a giant. He can be high. It is impossible to say that he is not proud, but he is inferior. There is also, even if he is among the humans, he can already be regarded as a peerless soldier, but when facing Ingrid, he is still obviously powerless. He even has a feeling now, that he feels like a small pink little thing that uses electricity and will vibrate like a show, although it can also make women reach that state, but obviously, what's so close? While Luo Shu was staring at the pool of blood, Ingrid also sat up slowly from a shy state. Looking at Luo Shu, she suddenly stretched out her hand, and then hugged Luo Shu. He entered his arms and sat on his lap. This kind of gesture, which seemed to hold a child, made Luo Shu even more embarrassed. But he didn't struggle, because he felt the feeling of, finally found the home, behind Ingrid. At this time, he was Ingrid's heaven. This feeling was very clear to him. Okay, we should get up and wash, and then I'm going to teach you something. After a while, Luo Shu patted Ingrid's slender hands, and then spoke to her. Yeah, hearing Luo Shu's words, Ingrid responded happily, then stood up and put on her clothes neatly. Okay, this neat action made Luo Shu's male self-esteem small. For the first time, he had the urge to find a devil fruit, not to increase combat effectiveness, but to find a fruit similar to rubber fruit or glutinous fruit that can change his body. Of course, this is just an idea. Luo Shu doesn't really need devil fruit, because he is not sure whether devil fruit's power is a skill. If it doesn't belong, it will be embarrassing. Instead, it will add a fatal weakness to himself. There will be some losses that outweigh the gains. What he wants most now is hockey. Ingrid, pay attention to the left, the pirate is about to kill. Yes, as Ingrid heard Luo Shu's words, she flicked the door-like sword in her hand and instantly cut the man into 2 pieces. The other pirates were really scared, but however, Ingrid would not show mercy to their men just because they lost their combat effectiveness. With the big sword in her hand dancing wildly, many pirates died under her sword. As the pirate ship's vitality was almost completely resolved, Ingrid also went to take their food, fresh water, and treasure to Luo Shu's boat, and then Luo Shu slashed and directly split the ship in half. Sink to the bottom of the sea. Good job. Looking at Ingrid who put food and water in the cabin, Luo Shu patted her leg and said with a smile. Hee hee. After hearing Luo Shu's words, Ingrid also smiled and looked at Luo Shu. She was very happy that Luo Shu could help. Counting this as already the 13th day after they separated from the ship. In fact, they should have been to the marine branch marked by Luo Shu 3 days ago, but Luo Shu was not in a hurry. He went, but slowly turned around in the sea near here. He is training Ingrid. Since the two confirmed their relationship that night, Luo Shu has also deepened his idea of making Ingrid stronger. Now Luo Shu knows Marine 6 styles and Kendo. In addition to finger pistol, Marine 6 styles requires a wide range of other 5 styles, so Luo Shu did not teach Ingrid 6 styles first, but first taught him Kendo. Luo Shu's basic swordsmanship is the root of the swordsmanship in this world. The strength and weakness of a swordsman is only related to this thing in addition to his physical fitness. To make an analogy, for example, this person's physical talent is the best computer, but the system is only Win95. It is easy to bring it up, but after you bring it, you can't do anything else, because the system does not support it. All games can only play DOS. The human body is the configuration of the computer, and Kendo is its operating system. So Luo Shu taught Yingli basic swordsmanship, which is the most important thing. Ingrid is also learning very seriously. She doesn't want to be a burden to Luo Shu in the future. Although the two are in this relationship now, she hopes to help Luo Shu more. So from that day on, Luo Shu taught Ingrid Kendo during the day. In the evening, the two of them were naturally aware of the taste, coughing cough, and unable to describe it. Of course, sometimes during the day, it was also impossible to describe. After learning for 3 days, Luo Shu and the others encountered the first wave of pirates. If Ingrid just studied at Luo Shu for 3 days and then went out to fight with the pirates, Luo Shu would definitely not let it go, but now that Luo Shu is watching, it doesn't matter. It's a good habit to use war to support war. It allows people to quickly understand what they have learned. After the captain, a man named Lester who offered a reward of 5.5 million Bailey, was first killed by Luo Shu, the others the person who is Ingrid's training target. In the first shot, Ingrid vomited badly at night, but she eased up the next day. The first time she killed people, it was all like this. It seems that Luo Shu did not have such experience. In the following days, Luo Shu and the others were in the sea near here, sweeping away the pirates. West Blue is worthy of being the worst and strongest among the four seas. The pirates here can really be described as numerous. East, South, West, and North, although East Blue has a lot of great characters, such as the former One Piece King Gore D. Roger, the current Revolutionary Army Commander Monkey D. Dorag, and Marine Hero Monkey D. Garp Waite. These people are the pride of East Blue. But the title of East Blue's weakest sea cannot be taken away. And South Blue, to be honest, it's not too little, but it's not too much. It's only better than East Blue. Ace, the 2nd Division captain of the Whitebeard Pirates, is from South Blue, and Gecko Moria is from South Blue. People, as well as the future Supernova 11, Kid Pirates are from here, Jewelry Bonnie is from here, Frankie's Story is also South Blue. But speaking of it, South Blue is also very weak because it is located on the other side of the Grand Line. And North Blue, on the surface, although it is calm, but in fact it is not Marine that really controls North Blue, but the Greys. North Blue is full of Grey hand parties. The most famous one is Gemel 66. Although it is a Kuhn mercenary, there is really nothing to say about its strength. In the later period, a large number of supernovae basically came from North Blue. But if it is said that the most chaotic, it is undoubtedly West Blue. Although North Blue has a weak government jurisdiction, the Greys mainly do business, and they need a relatively stable society for them to do business. So as long as you can tolerate bullying and pay enough protection fees, life here is actually not difficult, but in West Blue, life is really difficult. West Blue has produced a lot of celebrities. The most famous 4 emperors red-haired Shanks is here. In addition to the 8 treasure marines, Nicole Robin is also here. Blackbeard's crew Devil Patrolman Lafitte, it's also the people here, including Brooke, who is on the protagonist boat, is also here. So the people here are the most chaotic. The people here don't do business, but only pirates. The pirates here can really be described as numerous, but this is a very good place for Ingrid to experience. West Blue's pirates are not strong, at least there are almost none of observation hockey. Luo Shu is really invincible here. It can almost be regarded as a level 90 number leading people to brush a level 10 novice village. In this situation, Ingrid's courage and understanding of Kendo are increasing rapidly, but such good opportunities are not always available. Although he could rob the pirate ship to supply supplies, their boat was too small and too broken, and finally the boat was about to fail. At this time, Luo Shu and the others officially came to his original reservation, Marine Branch. However, when they came to the pier, they found that there was another warship that happened to be docked. This was a Colonel-class warship. Compared with this warship, Luo Shu's small broken ship was much more broken. Obviously, the people on the pier also had some visual benefits. Seeing Luo Shu's boat came, they didn't take care of it, not even a person who came to pull the rope. Instead, he stood there respectfully welcoming the ship, and as a group of people came down from the ship, those waiting on the pier also leaned forward, looking at the ship with a smile on his face. The people who came down, crowded, were about to walk towards the branch. "Hey, come, someone, help us tie the rope." While watching the people on the pier were going, Luo Shu was also irritated and couldn't help shouting loudly at the marine on the pier. "What is it called? Didn't you see that Colonel Hina came here? Are you waiting?" Hearing Luo Shu's words, the nearest marine turned around with disgust and said to Luo Shu, and when he heard this, Luo Shu was amused. "Give me the rope." Turning around, he said to Ingrid in the cabin. Although Luo Shu is very angry, these people are all marines, and Luo Shu is not easy to beat them, but revenge is inevitable. Ingrid immediately handed the rope to Luo Shu. Holding the rope, Luo Shu stepped on the rope in an instant, and suddenly rushed out. Moonwalk. When Luo Shu sprang out of the boat, he directly used Moonwalk. With a blast in the air, Luo Shu jumped straight over a dozen meters of water and came to the pier. After randomly finding a stake to put the rope around, he waved to Ingrid. Ying Jerry also slowly controlled the ship and leaned towards the dock. Although Luo Shu didn't rely on these people to make the rope, the sound he had just stepped on the violent air was quite loud, so loud that it even overshadowed the voices of those who were complimenting Hina. Hearing this familiar voice, Hina also turned her head instantly, just to see Luo Shu who was pulling the boat there. And not far from Luo Shu's side, it was the Marine who hit him just now. At this time, this Marine was covering his ears, looking at Luo Shu with a look of horror, and the blood flowing from his 2 ears could be vaguely seen. Don't get me wrong, Luo Shu didn't hit him hard with his voice, but he did need to rest for a while. As the ship slowly docked, Ingrid also got off the ship. But at this time, Ingrid was carrying a lot of things, because according to Luo Shu's words, the boat was no longer available. They wanted to change boats. Instead of throwing them here, they didn't know when they were stolen. It might as well just take it away. But when the two were about to pass the pier and head to this branch, Luo Shu found that the people who were walking inside the branch stopped to look at Luo Shu. Looking back at Marine who was still squatting there, couldn't these people avenge him? Luo Shu Commodore. When Luo Shu was puzzled, suddenly a woman with pink and long hair came out of the Marine pile. This woman was very beautiful and had a perfect body. She was dressed in red. Her suit is even more heroic. Her long pink hair is draped over her shoulders. She wears a pair of sunglasses on her face. She holds a lady's cigarette in her zui. When she looks at Luo Shu, there is some expression on her face, strangeness. Hello, Colonel Hina, but have I been promoted to Commodore? Luo Shu smiled when he looked at this woman. He was no stranger to this woman. Although he has not seen her in naval headquarters, he is also a person who has watched cartoons after all. Although he has not watched it again after seeing the battle on the top, he is very familiar with this woman. Halai Hina also has an interpreter. Hina is one of the few female characters in Marine. As for the strength, haha, Luo Shu is unclear at present. Yes, Luo Shu Commodore, but Luo Shu Commodore doesn't look like a strong person. Hina is a little disappointed. Hearing Luo Shu's words, Hina also took off her sunglasses and looked at Luo Shu provocatively, said to him. As for the people in this branch behind her, they were already shocked. In this world, Marine is the world's largest power under the government. It has a large number of people all over the world, but just like the ancient China, the status of Beijing official is too higher in the locality, and so is Marine. Marine is divided into 3 levels. The highest is the headquarters, which is equivalent to the ancient Forbidden City, and the following are branches and branches. The branches of the Grand Line all begin with the word G. Among these branches, the military ranks are equal, but the branches of the 4 Cs, all of which start with Marine, are finished. Although nominally the highest commander of a branch is at the level of Vice Admiral, these Vice Admiral encounters with the branch Vice Admiral beginning with the letter G, or the headquarters Vice Admiral, it is undoubtedly to lose 2 levels. Hina is the colonel of the headquarters. Logically speaking, she came to the branch of West Blue, and the head of the branch was also a colonel, and the 2 were of equal rank. But by looking at their flattery, they knew that they were very scared. And now Hina calls Luo Shu Commodore. Hina will not lie on this, and if Luo Shu is really Commodore, then his power, in West Blue, is equivalent to Vice Admiral of a certain branch. Vice Admiral, the colonel now feels that he has some difficulty breathing, but obviously, neither Luo Shu nor Hina have much time to care about him. Why, do you want to fight? Luo Shu raised his eyebrows when he heard Hina's words. Luo Shu was not surprised what this woman was going to do. In the original book, this woman was on the same road as Smoker. What a fight. Hina is a good Marine. Hina just wants to learn from Luo Shu Commodore. Hearing what Luo Shu said, Hina put her sunglasses in her arms, and without a word, she rushed towards Luo Shu. Come over. And seeing Hina rushing over, Ingrid behind Luo Shu wanted to step forward for the first time, but was stopped by Luo Shu. Although Ingrid was very powerful because of her huge size, plus this for a period of time, Luo Shu's guidance made her kendo level also very strong. But compared to Hina, who has been training in Marine since she was a child, it's still a lot worse. Fighting with opportunities is called training, and fighting without opportunities is called abuse. Apart from being Luo Shu's subordinate, Ingrid is also her own woman. How could Luo Shu hurt her own woman? Stop teasing. Black gun. Hina was very angry looking at Luo Shu who didn't put herself in her eyes. So when she was 50 or 60 meters away from Luo Shu, she had already used her skills. With a flick of her right hand, a black metal stick appeared next to her in an instant. Following a grasp of her left hand, and then a strong flick, the metal stick flew directly towards Luo Shu in an instant. Seeing the speed of the iron rod, Luo Shu nodded secretly. There were indeed 2 shots. The speed of this thing was very fast. If an ordinary person was hit, he would suffer serious injuries if he didn't die, and the wooden boat would hit a big hole. But unfortunately, when I ran into Luo Shu, this trick didn't work. Finger pistol. Facing the flying metal stick lightly, a powerful force flew out from Luo Shu's finger. The moment it hit the metal stick, it hit the metal stick directly. The stick was directly divided into 4 pieces and flew around, but Finger Pistol's fingers still did not stop at this time. It hit Hina's sunglasses directly, and only heard a crisp sound. Hina's sunglasses broke into countless pieces, and her body stopped. Hina knew very well that Luo Shu hadn't been serious just now, and if his fingers were a little bit bigger and lost, he would die. So her forward body stopped at the last moment. Looking at Luo Shu, who was calm in front of her, Hina gritted her teeth bitterly, but there was no way she knew she had lost, and she had lost it thoroughly. Although this guy is only 1 level higher than her own military rank, she knows that this guy's strength is more than twice that of herself. No, it should be more than several times. I'm also a student of Teacher Zephyr, so, sister, don't care too much if you learn from each other. Seeing Hina's appearance, Luo Shu took Ingrid and walked over. When he walked to Hina's side, he smiled. After saying a word, he walked towards the branch. Master Commodore, please here, please here. When Luo Shu walked over, the head of this branch immediately accompanied Luo Shu with a smile, and said to Luo Shu with a mean look. You're welcome, I haven't gone back to award the title yet, so I am still an ensign. He smiled politely at the colonel, and then Luo Shu walked directly inside. Although this made the colonel a little embarrassed, he bit his head and walked in with a smiling face, while Hina, who was originally crowded with people, was left with her soldiers at this time. My colonel, what shall we do now? Looking at Hina, who was still standing there, one of her soldiers walked over carefully and asked Hina. What else can I do? Take a break. After hearing this person's words, Hina came back to her senses. After yelling at him, she flicked her shawl and walked towards the branch. Although the colonel was with Luo Shu at this time, he arranged for someone to entertain Hina. When Hina walked into the branch, someone naturally led them to the guest house. This is Marine's rule, and it's not allowed to live in civilian facilities, which means that hotels and the like are not allowed to live in. But fortunately, the guest houses in this world are actually very good. Hina is used to living, and Luo Shu feels good. Rejecting the colonel's proposal to eat, Luo Shu finally drove those people away, and after having a good dinner with Anjali, they went back to rest. I've been floating on the sea these days. To be honest, I may not be very tired physically, but my inner fatigue is far from what my body can match, so Luo Shu and the others still want to go back to sleep. At the time, Luo Shu and the others had already gone back. Seeing Luo Shu and Anjali returning upstairs, Hina couldn't help but lag when he was eating. She is curious how Luo Shu practices. She knew that Luo Shu was not very old. He was still a swordsman genius. According to legend, his sword could cut through the sea and the sky, and was comparable to the world's largest swordsman, Eagle Eye. Originally, Hina thought that even if she played against Luo Shu, she would not be much worse. It is very likely that Luo Shu will be defeated by Luo Shu's sword in the end, but she never imagined that it was not the sword that defeated her in the end, but Luo Shu's random point. Although both are Zephyr's disciples, Hina really doesn't know what Luo Shu's this point is. After all, in her impression, no one has practiced finger pistol to this level in the 6 forms. The more I think about it, the more curious Hina is, and there are some absent-mindedness when eating. I'm full. After you finish eating, go back to sleep. Looking at her men in front of her, the more Hina thinks about it, the more she feels that she loses outrageously. It's not that she can't lose, but she has to know herself. Why lose? Thinking of this, based on Hina's personality, he immediately prepared to ask Luo Shu. So she didn't eat much dinner anymore, simply took a few bites and pushed the plate to the front, and said to her men. Naturally, her men didn't dare to disobey Hina, so they could only watch the Colonel Marine leave. Although they all live in guest houses, in fact, the rooms are divided into different levels. What level of rooms do ordinary soldiers live in? What level of rooms do lieutenants live in? School level, general level rooms, etc. There are clear regulations. Although Luo Shu has not yet returned to his headquarters to give the title, he is indeed a general, so he is the only one on this floor where he lives. After Hina went upstairs, she quickly found Luo Shu's guest room, but just when I was about to knock on the door, I heard a strange sound inside. The sound made her knock on the door uncontrollably stagnant, and the ghost looked inside with trivial eyes, and when she saw the situation inside, her pupils could not help but dilate instantly. At this moment in her gaze, I only saw the little giant behind Luo Shu and Luo Shu. At this time the two were mingling with Hongguo on Chuang. Luo Shu was holding two things that could not be described, which were bigger than his head, and his body was moving quickly. Those strange sounds came from Ingrid's Zui. Although she has never experienced this, Hina is not a fool. She naturally knows what she is doing, and subconsciously wants to leave. But for some reason, her eyes could hardly leave the trivial eye. Looking at the situation inside, Hina's hand unconsciously stretched to a place that could not be described. After continuing for half an hour, with Luo Shu's secret drink, Ingrid inside also completed the trembling task for the second time. As for Hina outside the door, she also felt some softness in her feet. With a light breath, Hina was about to go back and replace the equipment inside, but at this moment, she saw Ingrid holding Luo Shu up. Just like that, Luo Shu lay on her face, that big picture. Seeing such a situation, Hina told the truth. She was a little confused, but the steps she had originally wanted to leave also stopped again. When Hina went upstairs, it was about 7 o'clock in the afternoon, and when she went back to the room, it was already more than 10 o'clock in the evening. Maybe it was because it was the first time that it was officially impossible to describe in a place with Chuang, so Luo Shu, both Ingrid and Ingrid were extremely excited. This guy, is that so fun? Back to the room, Hina took a shower, drank a lot of water, and then lay down on the Chuang a little collapsed. She originally wanted to sleep, but she didn't know. Because as soon as you close your eyes, the picture just now appears. This made her annoyed and smashed her Chuang, then picked up a pillow, hesitated, caught between her beautiful pair of slender legs. Dazed, she slowly fell asleep, but in a dream here, it seems that the person whom Luo Shu can't describe just now, seems to have become himself. Chapter 31. Hina didn't know how long she slept in a daze, until she felt a little pain in her face from the sun, and she became confused. When she opened her eyes, she found that the sky was already bright before she knew it, as if it was past 9 o'clock. She sat up in a daze. Hina found that the pillow she was holding yesterday turned out to be shining, and there was a smell. Unpleasant smell. After Hina smelled the smell, she couldn't help but blushed, then immediately threw the pillow out, went back to the bathroom and changed her dress before she left the room. My colonel, you are up. Seeing Hina walked into the restaurant, there were some of her soldiers who hadn't finished breakfast at this time, and they couldn't help standing up respectfully and saying to her, "Oh, by the way, did you see Luo Shu?" Hina waved his hand casually after hearing the smile of her subordinates, then took a breakfast and walked to the chair next to her. The subordinate asked, "I don't know why. Hina really wants to see Luo Shu now, at least she has to know how she lost yesterday." "Master Commodore, I went out in the morning. I heard that I went to the school grounds here." Her soldier also whispered when she heard Hina's words. "Oh, it's okay." Hearing the soldier's answer, Hina said without caring, but the speed of eating breakfast slowly increased. After eating breakfast, Hina left the guest house and walked towards the campus of the Marine branch. When she came here, she found that Luo Shu and Ingrid were indeed here. But at this time Luo Shu was just sitting on the side of the stand, looking at Ingrid, and did not practice. In fact, as far as Luo Shu is concerned, he does not need to practice now. Because of his system, neither his body nor his skills will decline. In other words, in addition to practicing muscle memory, there is actually no meaning for him to practice or not, and he has already finished training muscle memory. Don't forget, when he was in Shimotsky village, he stayed for 2 years. He also stayed in Marine headquarters for several months. Since he can't easily improve now, there is not much difference between practicing and not practicing. Instead, it was Ingrid, who was practicing very seriously at this time. Perhaps the talents of half-giants are terrifying. Think about Whitebeard, Charlotte Linlin, Edward Wales, Moonlight Maria, etc. These people are half giants, and their height is obviously not as high as 12 meters. The length is obviously different from the height of ordinary people. This kind of human beings are called semi-giants. Some of them are genetically upgraded, and some are the crystallization of human beings and giants falling in love. However, Luo Shu does not think that humans and giants can really give birth to children. The probability is too low. After all, with his model that is far superior to ordinary people, he obviously feels powerless when dealing with Ingrid, who is only more than 5 meters long, let alone those giants that are really over 12 meters tall. I have to admit that the talent of half-giants is terrifying. They have the power comparable to giants, and at the same time have the agility far surpassing the giants. Ingrid is like this. The 500-kilogram giant sword was discovered when they wiped out a group of pirates. The sword was originally a giant's weapon. While Ingrid wields this giant sword without any effort, and at the same time, it can maintain extremely high speed and flexibility. Luo Shu taught her the kendo. She is now quickly absorbing it, although it has only been halfway through. Months' time, but her swordsmanship may have been around level 10 in Luo Shu. Although she is still far away from Zonggang, now she is a little swordsman when she goes out. Even if she is against the current Zoro, it is estimated that she will have the advantage, of course, provided that Zoro does not break out of the luck of the Son of Destiny. Luo Shu is going to let Ingrid practice swordsmanship to level 30, that is, to reach the realm of swordsman cutting steel. He will teach her the 6 styles. As his first woman, Luo Shu is not prepared to treat Yingge Li Zhang private. What he will do in the future, he will teach her what. Don't you practice? Looking at Luo Shu and Ingrid, Hina didn't know why her face was a little red, but she calmed down forcibly and then sat beside Luo Shu. My current practice is mainly to practice here. After hearing Hina's words, Luo Shu pointed to his heart. In fact, he was pretending to be 13, and he was trimming the hair inside. He actually didn't know how to practice. Inner training. I seem to understand. You have been in contact with Haki. But Hina is still very smart. Smart people always like to forcefully find a reason to explain what they don't understand. This is how Hina is. Hearing Hina's words, Luo Shu just smiled but didn't answer anything. He didn't know what to answer, although he should start learning Haki now, but he really don't know how to learn Haki. These things, in addition to being born, must be taught by a teacher if you want to learn the day after tomorrow. Even the Son of Destiny Monkey D. Luffy needs to be taught by Rayleigh. Luo Shu thinks he is not a genius, nor is he a Son of Destiny, so Epiphany is not suitable for him. I'm very curious, what was the trick you used to break my black gun yesterday? Seeing that Luo Shu didn't speak, Hina made up for Luo Shu by herself. This is already a default, and then curiously looked at Luo Shu and asked. This question has troubled her for a long time. You are also a disciple of Teacher Zephyr, you should know Marine 6 styles. Looking at Hina, Luo Shu looked at her curiously, and then said to her. Nonsense, all commanders at the school level or above can learn the 6 forms. This is not a too-secret technique. You mean that one is the 6 forms? Looking at Luo Shu's gaze, Hina Bai gave him a glance, but then there were some surprises. Don't you know that finger pistol can reach ultimate, so you can do this? Seeing Hina's surprised gaze, Luo Shu then pointed to the side. In an instant, a stone was directly beaten to pieces by Luo Shu's finger pistol. Watching Hina was also stunned by the scattered stone chips. I don't think you have learned the 6 forms. Looking back at Hina's expression, Luo Shu thought for a moment. He really doesn't know if this Hina has learned 6 forms, but logically speaking, Zephyr should she knows how to teach the 6 styles. Didn't she learn it? I'm focusing on devil fruit. Hina explained a little embarrassingly after hearing Luo Shu's words. Human energy is limited, and even on the earth, there is no such thing as an all-rounder. Learning mathematics is good, physics and chemistry should be good, because these are related, but Chinese, history, etc., may not be as good. Those who practice sprinting and playing basketball may not be good, those who play basketball and football may not be good, those who play football and table tennis may not be good. In this world, there is no such thing as a true all-rounder. Because a person's energy is limited, what he needs to train and study is also limited. Sometimes it is omnipotent, which often means omnipotence. So in this world, devil fruit, physique and kendo are actually three completely different branches, and everyone has a certain tendency. There is no difference between these three. Devil fruit's top-notch person does not mean that he can definitely win the swordsmanship or the physical skills. Similarly, a strong player in swordsmanship or physical skills may not have beaten devil fruit's top strong player. This is one thing. So generally speaking, anyone who eats devil fruit will focus on developing the power of devil fruit, as long as they don't lift their hind legs. It is almost impossible to make physical skills, devil fruit's power, and kendo all extremely strong, even if it is Whitebeard, who is known as the strongest man in the world. He is nothing more than reaching the ultimate power of devil fruit. As for the learning of all aspects of the system, this requires a certain inheritance. Of course, the inheritance mentioned here mainly refers to Marine. Even Zephyr's 10,000 Kizaru Pelusilino, whom he can't stand up to, can draw a tie with Rayleigh when he is playing swordsmanship, although Rayleigh has already reached old age at that time, and his physical condition has also declined drastically. But this also proves that Kizaru's swordsmanship is definitely above the level of swordsman. The opposite is Sky Island's Enel. His fruit ability has been developed to a very high level. Not to mention it is comparable to Admiral, but it is estimated to be only one step away from awakening, but his physical skills are weak. It's hard to imagine being defeated directly by Luffy, who opened the hook. Hina and Smoker are actually taking Kizaru's path. Their main training is devil fruit's power. If devil fruit's power awakens, they can at least have Vice Admiral's top combat power. Slow, and they may not have any talent. But for the first time, Hina had a different understanding of physique, because she hadn't thought about Luo Shu's finger pistol before that could be so powerful and could be separated from the body. 6 Style. Ultimate. Hina was a little shaken looking at the slowly falling stone chips, but Luo Shu didn't pay attention to her, but continued to say to herself. In fact, in this world, in addition to devil fruit, there is another power system, that is Haki. The power of devil fruit has little effect on observation Haki. You can comprehend observation Haki without practicing physical skills, but for armament Haki's comprehension is of no help. Armed colors can not only hit Logia, but most importantly, they can also improve your attack and defense. If your black gun is covered with a layer of armed colors, I guess it's a little troublesome to break it with finger pistol. While looking at Ingrid in the distance, Luo Shu said with a smile. Hearing what Luo Shu said, Hina also fell into contemplation. As the old saying goes, a soldier who doesn't want to be a general is not a good soldier. Similarly, Hina doesn't want to stop as a colonel in this life. She wants to go to New World. She wants to be the mainstay of Marine. Originally, she would give up physique. The main reason is that a woman's body, no matter how she trains, is absolutely impossible to surpass a man, just like Kuina at that time, but the development of devil fruit is mainly related to the spirit, so she chose this path. But after listening to Luo Shu's words, she knew that if she wanted to go to New World and want to go further, armament Haki would definitely learn. If you want to learn armament Haki, your body's strength is very demanding. Thinking of this, Hina couldn't help covering her forehead. It seemed that what she had thought before was too naive. It can only be said that Hai has protected these potential newcomers so well that they did not get in touch as soon as possible. The cruelty of this world. Luo Shu, are you going back to the headquarters? After thinking for a while, Hina suddenly gritted her teeth and raised her head to ask Luo Shu. I must go back, I won't stay here for a few days. Nodded, Luo Shu must go back, and he has to go back to learn two-color Haki. Then Hina will take you back, but on the boat, can you teach Hina 6 poses? With courage, Hina looked at Luo Shu and said seriously. Ah, yes. Seeing Hina's serious look, Luo Shu was stunned. Marine 6 styles is not difficult for her to learn, so why should I teach myself? In fact, Hina also has her own careful thoughts. Because based on the 6 formulas currently shown by Luo Shu's 6 formulas are likely to have been cultivated to ultimate, which means that Luo Shu's ability in the 6 formulas even surpasses Zephyr, if this is the case. So, what Luo Shu teaches, is it much better than Zephyr? No matter what kind of careful thinking Hina has, Luo Shu has saved some trouble. Otherwise, it would be very troublesome just to sail the ship or something for him and Ingrid to return to naval headquarters, which saves a lot of light. Let's start now. What am I going to learn first? Hina stood up when Luo Shu agreed, and said to Luo Shu with excitement. Let's learn to shave first. This is the basis of the 6 styles. Seeing Hina's so motivated look, Luo Shu thought for a moment and said to Hina. In this way, the number of people practicing in the school field has changed from 1 to 2. However, there is still a difference between the two. Ingrid now mainly practices swordsmanship, while me and Hina practices physical skills. In this way, before I knew it, a week passed. Ingrid practiced with Hina during the day, and Luo Shu naturally wanted to live with Ingrid at night. What do you think Hina has in mind? Luo Shu doesn't know, but seeing her often white herself, maybe she has some dissatisfaction. In this way, after a week's time, the Hina Marine, who had finished resting, also regained their status, left West Blue, and headed towards naval headquarters. Shave. As Hina's feet quickly slammed on the deck, her body disappeared in an instant. When she reappeared, she had already appeared 5 meters away, and she was in the original human form in front of her. On top of the wooden stake, a black prison has firmly sheathed the wooden stake. Papa, good job, it looks like you have learned to shave. Seeing this scene, Luo Shu, who was standing next to him, couldn't help clapping his hands, and then said with a smile. But after listening to Luo Shu's words, Hina just gave him a blank look, then walked away proudly, and patted with the giant hand of Ingrid who was sitting there resting in the distance to celebrate, and watched when this scene came. Luo Shu couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. He was ignored. After leaving the Marine branch, the ship went straight towards naval headquarters, but because this ship is not as fast as Luo Shu's boat, the time may be longer, according to the ship's navigator. They will spend 16 days crossing West Blue to the Calm Belt, then 4 days crossing the Calm Belt, walking along the red line to the inverted water flow controlled by the New World Government, and spending another day to return to the Grand Sabayati Tikan Island of Line, and finally return to naval headquarters in 2 days. It takes almost 20 days to walk in total. And these days, Luo Shu and the others are not idle on the sea. Luo Shu has also been training Hina and Ingrid. Yesterday they passed the Upside Down Mountain, and now they are only 1 day away from naval headquarters, and these days Ingrid and Hina are not growing slowly. According to Luo Shu's estimation, Ingrid's kendo level should have reached the 15th level, and it is estimated that it will not be a problem to reach the steel cutting level in about 2 months. Hina actually learned how to shave 5 days ago. Although she is still the most basic shave, she is pretty good. Compared with Luo Shu's learning progress, she is much faster than Luo Shu. It took about 20 days before and after she had learned it, and Luo Shu took a month, which also let Luo Shu see the gap between himself and Genius. But he has skill points that Genius can't match. In 5 days, Hina has combined shaving with her fruit ability. Although there are still many flaws, if she is really trained, it will increase her combat effectiveness by more than 1.5 stars. However, although Hina learned quickly under Luo Shu's guidance, her opinion of Luo Shu seems to be getting bigger and bigger. In fact, when talking about this matter, we have to start from the time of getting on the ship. At that time, Hina specially arranged 2 rooms for Luo Shu, a large room for Ingrid, and a luxurious room for Luo Shu. However, Luo Shu directly gave up the luxurious room to live with Ingrid. Now the 2 of them are addicted, and they feel uncomfortable if they don't do anything for a day. Although Ingrid has some inconveniences, is there anything else besides there? And Ingrid even claimed to be Luo Shu's Chuang, so the 2 of them lived together on the boat. Hina's room was right next to Ingrid, which might have some influence. So Luo Shu Hina's attitude didn't say anything. After all, it was noisy to others. I have to admit that sometimes Luo Shu's brain is a bit problematic. If this is a veteran in love, you would have seen something wrong, but Luo Shu just didn't see it. Just like this, another day passed. When Hina's ship arrived at the naval headquarters port, Luo Shu and the others got off the ship. Hina was okay, but when Luo Shu walked to naval headquarters, it was completely different from the last time I ignored him. The people on the dock would unconsciously pay attention to Luo Shu when they saw Luo Shu. After all, these days, Luo Shu singles out the 4 best desserts of the ant, which has been spread in naval headquarters. All people want to see what kind of person Luo Shu is. However, after seeing it now, they both glanced at each other, and they all saw their doubts in each other's eyes, because as far as the current situation is concerned, Luo Shu's appearance is actually not too strong. He doesn't have the height and bulk of superiority. Luo Shu's height is now 1.9 meters, but in the world of One Piece, he really belongs to the little dwarf. They are not big, and they are not fierce. Everyone looks peaceful, and smiles as if they can speak very well. It's hard to imagine that such a person can actually give a pirate who offers a reward of more than 1 billion pele. It's a bit surprising to be half dead. I'm going to report to Marshal Sengoku first, how about you? Luo Shu walked out of the dock and looked at Hina beside him and asked her. I'm going to report too, let's go together. Nodded, Hina walked towards the naval headquarters building first, but although both of them reported, they went to different places. Luo Shu went to looking for Sengoku, and Hina just went to look for Vice Admiral on duty. Anjali has been by Luo Shu's side. She has no identity yet. Luo Shu needs an identity to find Sengoku. Before arriving at Sengoku's office, he knocked gently on the door. After getting permission, Luo Shu walked in with Anjali. It was the same room, but at this time it was only Sengoku and his goat. Oh, you finally came back. I didn't expect to send you a letter this time. It's so dangerous. It's okay. Looking at Luo Shu, Sengoku also put down the pen in his hand and asked with a smile. For Luo Shu, he is really optimistic. It's okay, it can be considered as a successful completion of the task. Luo Shu nodded with a smile, and said to Sengoku. Okay, the matter of your promotion to Commodore has been reported all over the world. This is your military rank and information. Just go to the logistics report for a while. After a few conversations with Luo Shu, Sengoku took out a bunch of information. Passed it to Luo Shu, and Luo Shu took it and took a look. It was indeed the information about him, but the original ensign had become Commodore. In addition, there are many benefits that have changed. For example, his small house can be changed to a larger one. His monthly salary has also increased from 200,000 baileys to 3 million baileys. Even if it is 3 million, it is actually not too expensive. After all, the pele of this world is similar to the original island of the earth. The purchase rate is actually not too high. It costs 160 pele to buy a peach at naval headquarters. 3 million is actually not too expensive, but the total much better than 200,000. Marshal, I have 2 more things to trouble you. After receiving the information, Luo Shu looked at Sengoku and said to him. Oh, what else? Hearing Luo Shu's words, Sengoku also looked at him suspiciously. That's it. This is Ingrid Marjorna. I hope I can give her the identity of Marine. Secondly, I want to learn 2-color hockey. For Sengoku, the first thing is just a small thing, not to mention that Ingrid wants a Marine identity, even if it wants an ensign identity, that's no problem. So Sengoku quickly approved a first-class non-commissioned officer to Ingrid. As for learning the 2-color hockey, he has no choice but to contact Zephyr. After finalizing these 2 things, Luo Shu also left with Ingrid. After leaving the headquarters, they first went to receive their own house. Compared with Luo Shu's original house, this time his room was still nearby, but it was much larger. But if you want to sleep comfortably, Luo Shu has to find someone to decorate it first, because there is no Chuang in this house where Ingrid can sleep. After paying 10 million bailey to the logistics department and letting them renovate according to their own requirements, Luo Shu and Ingrid returned to their original house first. After returning home, Luo Shu and Ingrid were also helping. Move out the furniture in the original room, move out the Chuang, and then buy a few Chuang cushions to put together, so that Ingrid can have a place to live. After everything is set up, Luo Shu and Ingrid go to Marine. Had a dinner in his cafeteria. When she came back, Luo Shu found that his neighbor, Momoshiki, just came back, but at this time she looked at Luo Shu's gaze and became even more curious. She really couldn't think of this young man, who seemed to be better than her. Even stronger. However, the 2 didn't say anything. They just nodded to each other, and then returned to the room. As for what Luo Shu did when he went back, there is no need to say more. I was speechless all night and took a good rest. When Luo Shu received the news early the next day that he was going to the training ground on the 9th, he came directly here. When he came to the training ground on the 9th, there were already 2 waiting for him. One is Al Ain and the other is Zephyr. I heard Sengoku say, "You want to learn two-color hockey?" Looking at Luo Shu, Zephyr turned his head and said to him curiously, "Yes, I feel almost done." Hearing Zephyr's words, Luo Shu nodded. Now that he has returned his life to learn, he hasn't learned hockey yet, so he has nothing else to learn. Then let the old man try your current strength. Hearing Luo Shu's voice fell, Zephyr stepped on suddenly, and his body disappeared in front of Luo Shu in an instant, and Luo Shu was also there. I used a shave instantly. Zephyr's speed has always been his weakness. He has existed in the same era as Sengoku and Garp, and he has also become admiral, but why now people think of Marine only Sengoku and Garp, and not Zephyr, which retreats to him? The second line has a certain relationship. But another problem is that his strength is indeed not at the top. In fact, according to Marine's plan, the Admiral class should actually be on the same level as the 4 Emperors class. Of course, this is unlikely. So everyone knows that the Marshal level is actually on the same level as the 4 Emperors level. But there is only one Marshal of Marine, so in Marine, although there are people with the rank of Admiral, there are people with Marshal level combat effectiveness. For example, Garp, for example, Sengoku, use the data to make an analogy. If 900-1000 is 4 Emperors class combat power, then the combat power of Garp and Sengoku in the previous era is indeed more than 900, and they deserve to be 4 Emperors. Rank, and Admiral's selected combat effectiveness is between 850 and 900, which is half a rank weaker than 4 Emperors. And the biggest difference between him and Garp is not the thickness of hockey, nor the strength of his strength, but his speed, which is too slow. Now he can be regarded as old and weak, his body strength is not as good as before, and his speed is even slower. Although he uses shave now, it seems to Luo Shu that his shave may not be more expensive. In Luo Shu's eyes, his speed is almost frozen. The moment Luo Shu came to him, the raindrops on his waist suddenly slashed towards Zephyr, but the sights still predicted Luo Shu's movements. But Zephyr couldn't escape Luo Shu's dagger, because this move was too fast. He could only use his crusher arm to forcibly block Luo Shu's knife. Only a crisp ding sound was heard. Luo Shu and Zephyr separated instantly, but Luo Shu stood still and did not move, and Zephyr had stepped back 3 steps, and Luo Shu had also cut a white mark on his crusher. "Come on, go on." After breathing for a while, Zephyr's eyes showed a trace of appreciation. He really had never seen such a genius. Zephyr has been engaged in education for a long time. He knows that Devil Fruit may also be able to make breakthroughs through emotional fluctuations, but physical skills can only become stronger by accumulation over time. He originally thought that Luo Shu's current physical fitness. It may be that it is only twice as strong as when he came here. This is already his upper limit of calculation, because generally speaking, the strength of the body can be increased by 40% in the past few months, even if it is a genius. Even if 70% of them are super geniuses, they can be doubled, then they can be described as evildoers. He has already used evildoers to evaluate Luo Shu. But he found that he still underestimated Luo Shu now. With the blow just now, he can judge that Luo Shu's physical fitness is at least twice as strong as when he came, and now he is here. It is to see how strong Luo Shu's body is. As Zephyr rushed towards Luo Shu again, Luo Shu also directly killed him. The two fought back and forth on this beach. Although Al Ain was shocked, Luo Shu has become so strong in these few months, and he can fight Zephyr like this, but she has not stopped her work. She has been recording the fighting between the two. Luo Shu knew that Zephyr was testing his physical strength, so he didn't use any kills, but chose a head-to-head style of play. But at this time, his physical fitness has been strengthened by Marine 6 styles and life return. In fact, he is infinitely close to the physical condition of the great swordsman. It can be said that as long as he learns hockey, then his physical fitness will enter the top ranks of the world. In this case, let alone learning hockey, everything is enough. Bang! After the two of them fought for nearly 2 hours, Luo Shu and Zephyr looked at each other, and the huge counter-shock force shook them away this time. Luo Shu backed 7 steps, and Zephyr only backed 3 steps, but looking at the armament hockey on his wrist, he knew that Luo Shu was not wrong. "Okay, you are good enough to learn." Zephyr's face was full of relief at this time. You can only dodge, you can't block, you can't attack. In the training field number 9, Al-Ain shouted while attacking Luo Shu with Ingrid and Hina. At this time, Luo Shu's hands were handcuffed in front of him by Seastone's handcuffs, and his eyes were also wearing a blindfold, and he was constantly avoiding the attacks of the three. After Luo Shu and Zephyr had a fight yesterday, Zephyr was very pleased to tell Luo Shu that he could come to practice hockey, but compared to armament hockey, he asked Luo Shu to practice observation hockey first, because it seemed to him, armament hockey, in fact, Luo Shu can learn it sooner or later, but he needs to hand it over to Luo Shu quickly. Because he felt that the world government's dissatisfaction with him and his own dissatisfaction with the world government have become stronger and stronger. He doesn't know how long he will stay here. First, teach Luo Shu what he needs is the main thing. The best way to learn observation hockey is to get beaten. Luo Shu needs to Trulihar, the aura emitted from the human body, in order to dodge. The body cannot use force and needs to use this special strength for training. Rayleigh taught Luffy the same way, but the person who attacked Luffy was replaced by Hina, Ingrid, and Ain, who volunteered to come. Although the weapons of the three men were all replaced with wooden weapons today, Luo Shu still beat Luo Shu not lightly. After being beaten all morning, he did not find a way to use observation hockey. The teacher said that your talents may be in physical skills and kendo. It is a long process to practice hockey. Luo Shu was beaten by the three girls one morning. After eating lunch at noon, Luo Shu is in a state of healing. Although with his strength, as long as he uses his life to return, this kind of injury will soon be healed. But he didn't do this, because he had to remember these pains, which Zephyr taught him. As long as he remembered the pain, he could be more focused on searching for that trace of breath. As long as you find the trace of chi, then Luo Shu's hockey will be a beginner. Then there is the issue of enhancing hockey. For Luo Shu, the last thing you need to worry about is this. As long as he touches a little threshold and makes observation hockey a level 1, he can directly increase it to level 99, became the strongest existence of observation hockey in the world. Go on. Luo Shu, whose head was turned into a palm by the three sisters, said directly to the three sisters after taking a break. Okay. After hearing Luo Shu's words, Ingrid's eyes were full of dismay, but she knew that this meant Luo Shu was going to become stronger, so she stood up first. Cut. Although Hina made a cut, there was a deep resentment in her eyes that did not go past, but she knew that it was inevitable to learn hockey. The last one is Ain. Ain looked at Rose, hesitated and stood up. To be honest, Ain and Luo Shu stayed together for a few months. She actually can't say how she feels about Luo Shu. Love is definitely not, but there must be good feelings. Don't get me wrong, this affection is not due to Luo Shu's handsomeness, but Luo Shu's strength and Luo Shu's intrepidity. She watched Luo Shu use 5 of the 6 forms in a few months. After learning the Dachang, and after going out for a trip, not only the 6 types of Dachang, but also the return of life have been learned. This is a feeling of worship, and when this feeling of worship falls on people of the same age, sometimes it will deteriorate. While Luo Shu was being abused at Naval Headquarters, in the swimming pool of a huge mansion in Dressrosa, New World, he had short blonde hair and one of Shichibukai wearing sunglasses. Don Quixote Doflamingo, holding a few the beauty in a swimsuit, sits on a huge sofa, and there are some people beside him. These people are his cadres. At this moment, a man with a glutinous body slowly walked over. Dover, just received news from Marine, Luo Shu is back. Looking at Doflamingo sitting there, the sticky man said. That guy. After hearing this man's words, a few veins appeared on Doflamingo's forehead. Doflamingo is the Joker of the underworld. Everyone in the power knows this, and Marine also knows. Otherwise, why did Sengoku send his younger brother as an undercover agent in the first place? But the problem is that Doflamingo's site is in New World, and he is celestial. The identity of dragons makes Marine, even if he knows that he is Joker, Marine can't directly kill him. And the hatred between Doflamingo and Luo Shu was mainly in that ship of slaves. The slave auction in the underground world is actually controlled by Doflamingo. A ship of slaves is not worth much money, but Luo Shu robbed that ship of slaves. It was almost like hitting him in the face, and more than that. Luo Shu not only robbed the slaves, but also robbed the heavenly gold and killed them. Steward of celestial dragons. Because of Luo Shu's powerful potential and strength, the world government has suppressed this matter. Those celestial dragons can't compete with the world government, or 5 because of billions of heavenly gold, a ship of slaves, and an ordinary butler. Elders fell out. So this anger was spread on Doflamingo's body. There is nothing for or not because Doflamingo is also a victim, but it's just for you to let it go. You don't accept it. Doflamingo took it, so recently he not only sent a lot of new slaves to celestial dragons, but most importantly, he also lost 5 billion Baileys to celestial dragons. Luo Shu only robbed 2 billion, but he lost 5 billion. He didn't hate Luo Shu to have a ghost. But the problem is that Luo Shu's own strength is too strong, and now he is still in naval headquarters, he must swallow it now. But don't think that this is the case, Doflamingo, but he has never been a loser. Dover, what do we do next? Seeing Doflamingo's angry look, the sticky guy cautiously approached and asked him. Give me stare at him. I want to see how long he will be in naval headquarters. I heard that there are many people who want to find him at New World recently. Maybe the next time he goes out to sea, he will meet them. Maybe. Pushing his sunglasses lightly, Doflamingo's horns rose, and there was an inexplicable cruelty in his smile. Dover, let me kill him. At this moment a fat guy came over and said to Doflamingo with a fierce face. People in the family should never come into contact with him. You don't have the life of the Charlotte guys. But Doflamingo rejected him directly, no discussion. Black, pitch black, invisible black. Luo Shu's hands were handcuffed in front and his eyes were blocked. He stood on the familiar ground, but there was darkness all around him. He moved his ears hard and listened to any sound. But unfortunately, he couldn't hear anything. Pop. Suddenly there was a sound of wind. Luo Shu hadn't had time to react yet, and a wooden knife slashed directly on his head, but he hadn't come to care about the pain of the wooden knife. Well, a wooden stick came again. Luo Shu this time, I don't know why. Vaguely, he seemed to feel the direction of the wooden stick, slightly to the side. He avoided the attack of the wooden stick, but in an instant it was a huge one. The wooden sword struck. Although he could feel the direction of this thing, the wooden sword was too big and he had to jump up hastily, but unfortunately, he jumped too early. When he fell, the sword hadn't completely passed away. He stepped on the wooden sword, and his center of gravity instantly lost his balance. At this time, the wooden sword came again. At this critical moment, Luo Shu's pitch-black world seemed to suddenly appear as a bright light. If he just vaguely felt that something was coming in the darkness, then it's here. At that time, the bright light, in the darkness, really turned into a knife and slashed towards him. After seeing this scene, Luo Shu's original focus of gravity that he wanted to pull back, instantly relaxed, and his whole body fell to the ground, but he also passed the attack of the knife. Then the long sword-like wooden stick stabbed over, and in the darkness, it also turned into a bright light. Luo Shu jumped up with a carp dragon at the most delicate timing, and escaped the blow. But at this moment, the huge sword slashed over. Luo Shu immediately jumped, and flashed the sword again. At the same time the sword slashed over. Although Luo Shu could see the knife, it was not predictable. It was already difficult to get out of the way, so he could only take the blow hard, but he was working hard to look up along the knife. Finally, the white light broke the limit of the knife, and Luo Shu saw this man. From this person's hands, to this person's arms, this person's shoulders, this person's head, upper body, and then to the legs and lower body. After Luo Shu suffered a few more brutal blows, Luo Shu instantly lit up in the dark space. It was originally just 3 weapons in the dark sky. At this time, even the owner of the weapon, all entered Luo Shu. In that pitch-black sight. It's finished. Luo Shu couldn't help but feel unhappy after dodged the attack of the other party several times. After shaving off the attack of several people in an instant, he tore off the blindfold on his face. When he opened his eyes, a dialogue box appeared in his sight. Ding! Congratulations to the player for acquiring the skill, Observation Hockey. Observation Hockey, level 55-1, can see the enemy within 3 meters of its center, so as to make a certain prediction. At the same time, it can have a small chance to disturb the opponent's prediction of Hockey's own judgment. Quote. Seeing the news confirmed by this system, Luo Shu couldn't help laughing. At this moment, the three people next to him also ran over with a smile. They were also very happy to see Luo Shu finally trained. Congratulations. After running over, Ain looked at Luo Shu's excited look and said with a sweet smile. Master, you finally got it right. Looking at Luo Shu, Ingrid squatted down with a look of excitement, and looked at Luo Shu and said. You're a genius. Hina didn't notice it. It took you 4 months to practice. How stupid you are. Hina here snorted softly after hearing what Luo Shu said. Said to Luo Shu. In the past 4 months, Hina has not left the headquarters. She has been helping Luo Shu in training. Of course, Luo Shu is also helping her in training, but Hina is really talented. In 4 months, she had already practiced the 6 forms. Although the heat is still far away, it seems that Luo Shu may not have reached the 10th level in one form. But the speed of learning is indeed much faster than Luo Shu. As for Ain, these days, they have been by Luo Shu's side to help him train. Of course, they occasionally give up training, go shopping, eat together and so on. After all, Hina is not the kind of person who will treat herself badly. After these 4 months of training, Luo Shu became observation hockey. The 3 of them actually made a lot of progress. Ang Lee's physical fitness is also improving. According to Luo Shu's estimation, her kendo level should be already 28 or 29. It is possible to break through the realm of steel cutting at any time, not to mention Hina. The fruit ability has not improved much in the past few months, but the 6 physical skills have been learned. Naturally it is more than twice as powerful. Even Ain, who has always been very quiet and likes to study more than training, has been playing Luo Shu for more than 4 months, and she has perfected her swordsmanship. Luo Shu even saw that a few days ago, she slashed towards the sea, which meant stepping into the swordsman. Unlike Luo Shu, a person with skill points, this world can only cut slashes after possessing the physical fitness of a swordsman and with the understanding of kendo. Otherwise, with Ingrid's current physical fitness, she would have surpassed the average swordsman a lot. I invite everyone to dinner today. What do you want to eat? Looking at the 3 girls next to him, Luo Shu exclaimed in excitement. He finally didn't need to be frustrated to let go of the enemy. This excitement really came from inner. Let's go eat roast roux. You guy is finally willing to bleed. Upon hearing Luo Shu's dinner, Ingrid exclaimed excitedly for the first time. Ever since she had eaten the grilled roux at Naval Headquarters, she has never forgotten the grilled roux. In fact, she has also eaten the grilled roux before, but that is the grilled beast caught in the mountains. She really can't make this thing. The taste is actually far worse than the grilled roux shop. The latter sentence is what Hina said. In fact, when Luo Shu went out with them, Luo Shu was very willing to spend money, but usually Luo Shu always likes to eat in the cafeteria, and Hina used to be unnecessary if she doesn't know how to eat in the cafeteria. They all go out to eat. That's why she said Luo Shu was a little bit stingy. When a group of 4 left the training ground with a smile, the sky was gradually getting late. The 4 went to a roast roux shop they had always visited recently. After asking for a box, they ordered a lot of roux. Of course, there is wine. There are red, white, and beer, but today they are not drunk and homeless. Come on, drink, drink. Wow, it's spicy, but just eat it with grilled meat, it's great. Shaking open the door of the box, Luo Shu walked out from the inside, and the strong drunk smell coming out of it. To be honest, people who may pass by will be dizzy. Luo Shu really drank a lot today. Luo Shu can't remember how many bottles he drank anymore. Red, white, and beer. At first they were drunk alone, then they started to drink, and then they started to drink again. Luo Shu didn't know what he poured into Zui just now. With his physical fitness, he was about to drink a piece of it. It can be seen how much he had drunk this wine. He only remembers that he went to the roux. It should have been 5 times. As for the wine, well, at this moment in the big box, there may be wine bottles everywhere on the ground. The reason why he will come out now is firstly to breathe, and secondly to escape a drink. These 3 women are too crazy. Holding on to the wall, Luo Shu blew the wind outside, a little sober, and had to admit that the 3 women inside were too crazy. Hina knows how to drink. Luo Shu knows that she can and can drink from her appearance, but Ain and Ingrid can drink. Luo Shu has some surprises. Ingrid is big and drank a lot, which is understandable, but how did Ain drink so much? Luo Shu originally thought that he couldn't drink Hina, and he should have drunk those too. But now it seems that he should be thinking too much. Oh, no, I'm going to the toilet. The breeze blew Luo Shu a little sober, but it also made him drunk, and immediately trot to the bathroom. After exhaling, he went to the bathroom. Sitting on the toilet seat in the bathroom, his head was dizzy after vomiting up. He had to take a moment to slow down. It took him a while before Luo Shu remembered that he still had skill points that he hadn't added. I was thinking about adding it tomorrow, but now it's okay to add it. With a long breath, Luo Shu clicked on the skill column. Looking at the observation hockey displayed on the skill column, Luo Shu also clicked on it. Level 1, Level 2, Sanji, all the way up. Originally Luo Shu thought he could directly add to level 99, but unexpectedly, when he reached level 50, a dialog box popped up in front of him. Observation hockey has been added to level 50, please choose the branch of further study. After scanning this dialog box, Luo Shu saw that there were two options on observation hockey in the skill block, one for seeing and the other for smelling. What does this mean? In a low voice, Luo Shu scratched his head, and then clicked the question mark next to it. In an instant, another dialog box popped up. This is for introduction, and Luo Shu finished reading it. He also understood the meaning of this branch. Seeing and hearing color is different from armed color. Observation hockey has two branches, one is seeing and the other is smelling, which means that one is seeing and the other is listening. These two branches are the same before level 50, but after level 50, they are completely different. We all know that observation hockey has two extremes. One is like the original One Piece King Gore D. Roger, and Princess Otahime like, listening to the sound of all things. This is the limit of observation hockey. It can hear the sounds of all things. Of course, the premise is this thing. There is a soul and a life. This skill has an active and wide coverage, and is also the most common observation hockey. Whether it is used for combat or for finding people, it is quite convenient. For example, Enel's heart plan is a manifestation of this kind of hockey. With his fruit ability, he can monitor all Sky Island. The other is to see. The characteristic of this observation hockey is that it can be seen far away. For example, the observation hockey that Usopp later awakens is like this. And the limit of this kind of hockey is to see some fragments of the future. Observation hockey of Katakuri of the Big Mom Pirates is such a way. He can see some future scenes. Otherwise, how could he escape under Luo Shu's hands? This is a kind of observation hockey that is more conducive to combat, but it is not very helpful for monitoring, doing tasks and the like. At least for Luo Shu, it is impossible to find the last Lavrud by virtue of this kind of hockey. If you want to find the final island, you must use, listen. But to be honest, what did Luo Shu do with Lavrud? If he is really upset with the world government, he will be fine. What truths and stells are he looking for? Are you tired? At least Luo Shu doesn't do it like this, so although he drinks a lot now, Luo Shu didn't hesitate too much, and directly clicked on the C option. Then the level jumped to 51. There is nothing to say next, just add it to level 99 and it's okay. Observation hockey, LV1, can see the enemy within 3 meters from the center of oneself, so as to make a certain prediction. At the same time, there is a slight chance of disturbing hockey's prediction of himself. Single quote. Observation hockey, LV51, there is a 5% chance of seeing the future image of the battle. You can see a single enemy within 10 kilometers from the center, which can greatly interfere with the opponent's observation hockey's prediction and judgment. Single quote. Observation hockey, LV99, has a 75% chance of seeing the future image of the battle. You can see the situation of a single enemy within 100 kilometers centered on yourself. It can perfectly interfere with the opponent's observation hockey's prediction and triviality. Certainly. Single quote. Looking at the level 99 observation hockey, Luo Shu laughed happily. Now he has some eagerness to go to Katakuri and the others. This time he wants to see if these guys can't run. NS. It's time to go back. The excitement was suppressed a bit. Luo Shu walked out of the bathroom, and after washing his face and getting more energy, he walked towards his private room before he walked to the door of the private room. At the time, he could clearly feel the 3 people inside. 2 of them were already lying there. They should be Ingrid and Hina, and the only one still sitting there drinking was Ain. I didn't expect that the best drink was Ain. With a self-deprecating smile, Luo Shu opened the door and walked in. Come on, drink with me. Looking up at Luo Shu who walked in, Ain smiled and raised his cup, but Luo Shu shook his hand. No, I'm dying to drink too. Let's forget it today. He sighed, and it was the first time he drank and drank. If you don't drink it, it's okay, then come with me to do another thing. Ain shook the wine glass, placed it on the table gently, and then said to Luo Shu with a smile. What? Hearing Ain's words, Luo Shu walked over curiously, but just as he walked over, Ain grabbed his hand. With Ain's hard work, Luo Shu drank too much. Some were soft and lay directly on the floor of the box. Seeing Ain sitting directly on his body and unequipping his upper body, Luo Shu saw Ain's inside. There was no equipment at all. Looking at Luo Shu's surprised gaze, Ain bowed his body. After he got down, he said in Luo Shu's ear, "Do this." Is this Luo Shu again? Holding her forehead, T listened to the indescribable voice, and kept pouring into her ears. She who had already drank a lot, opened it in a daze. Closed eyes. Looking to the side, she found that the origin of the voice was indeed Luo Shu. However, unlike Luo Shu and Ingrid, which she has peaked many times, today's protagonist is still Luo Shu, but the heroine is replaced by Ain. Ain. Upon seeing this scene, Hina's eyes suddenly stared. It is really hard for her to believe what she saw. Although after more than 4 months of getting along with each other, Luo Shu is like a fool, knowledge. But they understand each other very well, Luo Shu's position in their hearts. The old saying goes well, it's not without reason that you will be in love with each other for a long time. Hina and Ain are very clear about Luo Shu's position in their hearts, so the two girls will be wary of each other in normal times. But Hina hadn't thought about it. It had just been a drink, why Ain would be with Luo Shu. This is too much. Thinking of this, Hina felt a little sour in her heart. She felt a bit wronged, but watching Luo Shu and Ain's movements and listening to their voices, Hina's inner grievance was gradually being another kind of grievance. Engulfed by unknown emotions. Hina doesn't know how long it has been. It may be 1 hour, it may be 3 hours, it may be 5 hours. She watched Luo Shu and Ain change 5 or 6 positions. Luo Shu panted and hugged Ain to sleep, and Hina also fell asleep in a daze. But not long after, she suddenly heard a sound. When she opened her eyes, she found that Ain was already dressed and standing at the door of the box. After taking a deep look at Luo Shu, she pushed away. The door of the box walked towards the outside. Seeing this scene, Hina immediately sat up and quietly left the box. When she walked out of the box, she realized that the sun outside had risen. But it was not time to watch the sunrise. She ran out of the rotisserie in a few steps. And on the street outside the rotisserie, I stopped Ain. Hey, are you leaving like this? Hina called out loudly, looking at Ain's figure. From now on, he will leave it to you and Ingrid. Take good care of him. Don't look at him when he is usually a little stupid, but he is the most reliable man. Hearing Hina's words, Ain's body stopped in the air, then said without looking back. What do you mean by that? You got in with him last night, how can you tell me to take care of him? Hearing Ain's words, Hina couldn't help shouting at her. Soon, you will understand that Luo Shu is a good person, remember, take good care of him. The trembling Ain turned his head, and after a glance at Hina behind him, he disappeared into the original with the shaver. This made Hina, who originally wanted to catch up, walked a few steps forward, but looked around dumbly, because the location where Ain stood just now was a crossroad, and she didn't know where to chase her talent. Good. I don't believe you won't go home anymore. Thinking of this, Hina immediately hurried towards Ain's house, using a shave. But when she came to Ain's house, she unexpectedly discovered that Ain's house was empty and all the personal belongings had been packed away. Apart from that, there was nothing. Looking at this empty house. Home, Hina is really at a loss. You are here. At this time, on a pier of naval headquarters, a warship was parked. As a figure flashed by, Ain's figure appeared on the ship, and on the deck of the ship, the big man with purple hair was standing there. This person is not someone else, but Zephyr. Teacher. Hearing Zephyr's words, Ain also stood up and exclaimed respectfully. Actually, you don't have to leave at all. You are a member of the scientific force, and you have nothing to do with the old man. No one will embarrass you in Marine, and even if there is anything, Luo Shu will protect you. You choose to follow the old man left. Hearing what Ain said, Zephyr couldn't help talking with excitement. It seemed to him that he really seemed to have done something evil. If he knew that Ain would become fettered with Luo Shu, he said nothing would allow Ain to join his plan before he met Luo Shu. Teacher, you saved my life. In the hands of Edward Wilg, there is my reason for your severed hand, so I believe Luo Shu will also agree with me to do this. Gently bit her lip, Ain raised her head. Although she was holding back the tears in her eyes were unusually firm. She knows what she is doing, and she also knows her heart. She cannot abandon the teacher who saved her life because of love. She needs to do her best to help the teacher, although she does not know how far she will go. But this is her choice. Hey, you did this. Zephyr sighed while looking at Ain's firm gaze. Teacher, if you don't leave, it's too late. Ain said stubbornly after interrupting Zephyr, and when he heard Ain's words, Zephyr opened his mouth and said nothing more. Instead, he waved his hand directly, and the ship sailed towards the Gate of Justice. When the ship left the Gate of Justice, the staff in charge of cleaning Zephyr's office found a letter that Zephyr had rebelled against Marine. Almost instantly, the harsh alarm sounded through Naval Headquarters, and everyone was in a mess. Sengoku immediately ordered a chase, but it was a pity that Zephyr had already seized the opportunity, and the contacts he had left for so many years also played a role. Effect. Almost half of the people in Naval Headquarters are his students, and they really don't work hard. Hina was not called to attack, but she also knew the reason for the first time. She seemed to understand. Why did Ain choose to do this last night? A little sadly returned to yesterday's barbecue restaurant, she found that Luo Shu in the room had gotten up and was staring at the ground blankly, and beside him, there was a phone worm. It was obvious that someone had already told the news just now. Luo Shu. Ingrid was sitting next to him now, looking at him worriedly. Seeing Luo Shu's bewildered look, Hina bit her lip lightly, and then hugged Luo Shu from behind. Now she didn't know what to say. Don't worry, I have nothing to do. Luo Shu smiled and said to her, patted Hina's hand with a smile. Although the smile was slightly reluctant, he could see that he had accepted it. Otherwise, we can chase her, maybe. Looking at Luo Shu's appearance, Hina said actively, but Luo Shu shook his head because he knew it was impossible. Would you like to go out and relax? Sitting in Sengoku's office, Luo Shu looked at Sengoku who was looking at him with some concern, smiled lightly, and then shook his head. It's okay, although I'm a little confused. Luo Shu said with a smile, pointing to his own heart. Today is the third day that Zephyr betrayed Marine. In these 3 days, although Marine has been working hard to cover this matter, in fact, everyone who has reached a certain level knows it, and Luo Shu has gone through these 3 days. The days have eased, and my mood has improved a lot. In fact, he should have known that Zephyr was going to rebel, and if Zephyr left, Ain would definitely follow it 100%, and he would stay by Zephyr's side to assist him with determination, because Ain and Zephyr is not a simple teacher-student relationship. In the battle where Zephyr lost his arm, few people were left on the ship, and Ain was one of them. The reason why Zephyr lost his arm in that battle is not to say how strong Edward Wilb is. Think about it and know how strong is a guy who only became Shichibukai after the Top War. And the reason why he could hit Zephyr hard was because he hijacked the students' relationship. Even if Zephyr had broken his arm, he would be much stronger than him. Otherwise, it would not have been Zephyr that had broken his arm, but the ship would have died. Luo Shu had seen reports about that battle. After Zephyr was cut off by his arm, he was severely wounded with one hand and he fled. Zephyr was in a state at the time and could not chase down, and there were a few people alive on the ship. The injury was also very serious, and in such a situation, Zephyr could only reluctantly stay in place and wait for Marine's assistance. Ain and Zephyr have this relationship. It is estimated that Zephyr is not dead, or if he is not discouraged, Ain is unlikely to stay with Luo Shu. Even if Luo Shu feels it, she is really very like myself. Hey, it's good to be young. By the way, your ship is being built in the city of Seven Waters recently. If you get stuck there, then you can go for a stroll. From here, go to Eni's lobby from the ship, and then take the train directly from the sea. Going to the Seven Waters is very fast, just in time you can go and see your boat. Sengoku sighed. Sengoku knew that he had nothing to say about it now, so he could only change the subject and said to Luo Shu. My ship, Luo Shu asked with some confusion when he heard Sengoku's words. He hadn't really thought about it, his ship was actually a new one. Originally, he thought that even if he could take a boat out, he would just allocate a boat directly to him. Now listening to Sengoku's meaning, he actually built a new boat for him. Your combat power is in my eyes. Sooner or later you have to be promoted to Vice Admiral, Admiral, or even Marshal, so you can build your own ship in advance. This is good, just press for Vice Admiral level, it is estimated that no one will say anything. By the way, if you go to the capital of Seven Waters, you can also study the interior problems. You have also seen Garp and their ships. Their ships are all specially built. Some of its own characteristics. Seeing Luo Shu's surprised look, Sengoku also explained it to him. Hearing what Sengoku said, Luo Shu also nodded. Indeed, Marine's headquarters above the Vice Admiral level, their boats have some special marks of their own. The decorations on the boats are also according to Vice Admiral's personal preferences. Here, Marine is still very human at this point. That's okay, then I'll go take a look. Nodded, it's actually nice to go for a walk. By the way, Hina applied for transfer to your deputy. What do you think? Seeing Luo Shu was about to leave, Sengoku stopped him and showed him an application for transfer. Luo Shu's current observation haki is at full level. With a glance of his eyes, he can see the situation clearly. Sure enough, it is Hina's application for the transfer order. She is not planning to take charge of another ship, but is ready to be her own deputy. I must be happy, but Hina is a colonel, and I'm just Commodore, this doesn't fit well. Scratching his head, Luo Shu asked Sengoku cautiously. Why, you still want a vice admiral, get out, you just need to agree. Upon hearing Luo Shu's words, Sengoku gave him a sideways look, and then waved his hand to indicate that he can go. Luo Shu didn't care, opened the door of Sengoku's office and walked out. Wow, ha 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 ha. Sengoku, I'm back, hey. Boy, it's you, has Sengoku promoted you again? As he walked out of Sengoku's office, one of them was digging his nose in the front corridor. The old man smiled and came over. Needless to say, you know that you laugh like this, and there is only one person at Naval Headquarters, Monkey D. Garp. Uncle Garp, how can it be so easy to get promoted? You are still Vice Admiral at such an old age. I guess, in my whole life, I may just be a Commodore. He greeted Garp grinningly. Luo Shu and Garp is still very familiar. After all, Luo Shu was brought back by Garp, and when he was practicing the 6 forms of rest, occasionally he would go to Garp to chat and beat up. The relationship between the two was quite good. However, in the past few months, Garp has just been away. I heard that New World Redheads and Kaido are not honest. Garp has been in town for a while and just came back today. Smelly boy, is labor and management unwilling to be promoted to admiral? Labor and management are, forget it, I can't tell you, yes, this is for you. Garp, who was holding his nose, glanced at Luo Shu, and then said disdainfully, in fact, he did not promote Admiral. Luo Shu naturally knows why. Because if you are promoted to admiral, celestial dragons can contact Admiral directly when something goes wrong. Garp is too lazy to look at Celestial Dragon's face, so he won't be an admiral. After receiving the little book that Garp threw over, Luo Shu looked down. Good guy, what he threw over turned out to be Armament Hockey's practice guide. Uncle Garp, some of these are too expensive. Looking at Cap 5.0, Luo Shu's mouth stuttered. This thing can be said to be a masterpiece. After all, in this world, Armament Hockey uses few people better than Garp. His Armed Color Practice Guide and Heart Virtue are absolutely invaluable. Stop talking nonsense, you were brought in by me. Don't even know how to be armed, that's a shame, as is the old Zi Lao, teach you not to teach you all before leaving. Okay, I'm going to find the donuts hidden by Sengoku. Kid, I'm very optimistic about you, come on. After taking a picture of Luo Shu, Garp said indifferently, and then strode past Luo Shu and walked in Sengoku's office. Looking at the back of Garp leaving, Luo Shu couldn't help shaking his hands with Xiaobin, remembering that he had decided to join Marine. Maybe, it was really a good choice. This marine's dedicated route is really fast. Sitting on the boat, Luo Shu couldn't help but said with emotion as he watched the moving ships. Have you never sat down? Hina leaned over from the side, pressed her hands on the fence where Luo Shu was sitting, and looked at Luo Shu curiously and asked. No, the direction is wrong. After hearing Hina's words, Luo Shu recalled it, as if he hadn't walked. In fact, they had walked for a while. It was when Luo Shu first came to naval headquarters, but it was the night when Luo Shu left. Luo Shu didn't pay attention. It was the first time he left during the day. This whirlpool connects a total of 3 places: naval headquarters, Enies lobby, and the deep sea prison. But to be honest, as Marine, I don't really catch a cold with the other 2 places. Shrugged, Hina laughed, said to Luo Shu. I am not too cold with those 2 places either. Although Luo Shu has never been to Enies lobby and the deep sea prison, it is obvious that Luo Shu has an impression of these 2 places and has no liking. 21. Come out for a stroll, I'm in a better mood. Seeing Luo Shu seem to be in a good mood, Hina couldn't help but smiled and asked Luo Shu. In the past few days, Hina has been with Luo Shu every day, probably because of Ain's departure, which makes Hina suddenly seem to have a more inseparable feeling for Luo Shu. Even Luo Shu, the second fool, can feel Hina's feelings for herself. But Ain had just left. He really didn't have the mood to think about these things. Even recently he didn't, and Ingrid couldn't describe it. The mood is much better, but if you are lazy, you are in a bad mood. Has armament hockey practiced? Luo Shu looked at Hina and laughed while supporting his chin. Cut. Luo Shu gave Luo Shu a glance, and Hina left here, walked to the side of Ingrid, and began to practice again. After obtaining Garp's book for practicing armament hockey, Luo Shu and the 2 girls studied together on the same day, and the result of the study was that Luo Shu and the others were helpless. That is, armament hockey, actually the threshold for cultivation, not very high. In the original book, Tashigi can use the armed hockey 2 years later, not to mention Luo Shu and the others, so instead of studying there, it's better to just start practicing, although the strength of the body is the same as the training of armament hockey. The upper limit is related. But if it is only the initial winding, there will still be some effects. So Luo Shu and the others started cultivating after that day. After 3 days of cultivating at home, they boarded the boat and prepared to go to the City of 7 Waters. The boat they are on is still Hina's boat, which is not very big, and these people of Hina, Luo Shu, are also ready to take it all. After all, Hina is his adjutant. If he doesn't take it, these people can only be broken up if you go to other teams. They are all acquaintances, so it's better to stay. Marine's dedicated passage is indeed fast. Luo Shu hasn't come and watched the water more. The door of Enies lobby not far away has appeared in front of them. The ship's correspondent immediately requested a stop at Enies lobby. Enies lobby was very generous and opened the door of justice directly, letting the ship sail into Enies lobby, and then docked at the pier. You can move around freely these few days, and go wherever you want. It's a holiday for you. Before disembarking, Hina deliberately said to everyone on board. After hearing Hina's words, everyone on the boat was cheered. The extra vacation these few days is still very good for them. You can take a break or go home. These people have already started researching what's going on this holiday. And Luo Shu, Ingrid, and Hina got off the boat and prepared to go to the sea train station of Enies lobby. Oh, is there a beautiful girl in front? Is it our new transfer? But as they were walking in front, a group of people suddenly walked out of Enies lobby, and one of them knew that he was not a good person. With a mask on his face, he walked up and down. His eyes lit up instantly when he saw Hina standing beside Luo Shu. Sir, don't provoke those people, that man is Luo Shu Commodore. But before he could come forward to molest him, he was suddenly pulled down by the people around him. Looking at this man, the people around him said, a Commodore, there is some trouble. After hearing this person's words, it was obvious that this guy didn't put a Commodore too much in his eyes. For him, Commodore was just a little troublesome. He completely ignored Commodore, the previous name. Sir, it's Luo Shu, Luo Shu Commodore, the Luo Shu who defeated the Shanghai thief Katakuli, who offered a reward of 1 billion yuan. As soon as he saw that this person was going to die in daily life, his men immediately said in detail. Get up, and when he heard this, the man's mouth opened. Because he also remembered that Luo Shu who was making a lot of trouble 6 months ago, but Luo Shu had no news for half of the time, and he had almost forgotten about it. But if it was Luo Shu, he really couldn't afford it. So he took the group of people and walked away, but Luo Shu touched his ears at this time, joking, his full-level observation hockey, how could he not know what this guy said? No, Spandam, chief of Enies Lobby CP9. If this guy 247 dared to come and die, it would be fine if Luo Shu killed him. But now although this guy hasn't acted, but after all he covets his own woman, Luo Shu is uneasy if he doesn't teach him some lessons. So watching his progress, observation hockey's foreseeing the future appeared, and Luo Shu instantly knew where he was going next. With a light touch of his finger pistol came out in the air and hit the ground in front of Spandam directly. Small pit. At this moment, Spandam's foot was directly stepped in the pit, and his center of gravity instantly became unbalanced. When he fell a dog and gnawed shit, he also gave his foot a slap, which was really useless. Ignoring the yelling behind him, Luo Shu took Ingrid and Hina directly into the C train station of Enies Lobby. After buying the tickets for the box, the three people waited for a while, and the C train entered the station. In my box, I watched the C train rushing on the sea. To be honest, Luo Shu encountered this experience for the first time. It really seemed to be quite fun, but when halfway through the drive, the C train shook a bit. According to the previous statement, it seemed to hit him. Only Toad. But this is just a small episode. Luo Shu and the others did not sit on the train for too long. The train slowly entered the station. After getting off the train, Luo Shu and the others also stepped on the most powerful shipbuilding shrine in the first half of the Grand Line. On the land of the water capital, the city of Seven Waters, the most famous shipbuilding sanctuary on the Grand Line, is not one of them. Although there are some well-known shipyards in New World and Four Seas, compared with the city of Seven Waters, no matter whether it is fame or strength, there is no way to compete with it. According to legend, Pluton was built here 800 years ago. But that is only passed down, but this is the most resounding business card, making this city quite famous. Almost everything in the city of Seven Waters is related to ships. In this land, there are almost dozens of shipbuilding companies, large and small. Because the ships built are different, the divisions are different. There are those specializing in the production of merchant ships, those specializing in the production of fishing boats, and those specializing in the production of lifeboats and life rafts on ships. All in all, there are many types, but the shipbuilding industry does feed the entire urban people. And this city, the hottest news recently, should be that the One Piece King Gor-D Roger had gone several decades ago. The boat he was on was made by a person on this small island. That person was called Master Tom. Tom's shipyard is just a small shipyard on the island, not very good, but because he and Roger see each other right. So he made Roger a boat out of the treasure tree atom, and that boat sailed the entire Grand Line, so that Tom's reputation instantly reached the ultimate. Unfortunately, when Gor-D Roger turned himself in, his good days came to an end. Although he also built a sea train that benefits the country and the people, the contribution is not worthwhile. In fact, it seems to Luo Shu that Tom's death can be said to be inevitable. Let's not talk about the drawings of Pluton that he hid. From the perspective of the world government alone, he helped Roger build a ship for the enemy's behavior. Big problem. This has nothing to do with feelings and passion, and it is understandable to think about it. For example, in modern times, there is a person in a certain country who wants to subvert the state power, and then you like him to create a lot of arms for him on the battlefield. These arms are very useful, and they almost overthrew the rule of the current government. After they put out this group of rebels, how could the government not ask you to settle accounts? Not to mention the construction of a sea train, even if it is a sea rocket, it is estimated that it will be dead after it is built. However, although Tom died, his craftsmanship has been handed down. The current largest shipyard in the city of Seven Waters, the chairman of Carrera Company, and the mayor of the city of Seven Waters, Bingshan, is Tom's apprentice. Although Tom's character is shameless by the world government, his technology really convinces everyone. Carrera is now the largest shipyard here. Marine is also cooperating with this company. All custom warships are built in this company. Luo Shu is going to go here. After getting off the sea train, Luo Shu and the others got on a small boat and walked back and forth in the City of Seven Waters. The prototype of the City of Seven Waters is the Water City of Venice in the real world. There is no significance for the existence of cars here, and the most important means of transportation is the boat. Walking around, I have to admit that the scenery here is really unique. There is a special product called water and water meat. This meat looks like some cooked food called xiaodu from Luo Shu's hometown, but the taste is obvious but much better than the small belly. The meat inside is in pieces, and there is no fat, but it tastes no firewood, as if meat tenderizer has been added, but there is no such thing as meat tenderizer in this world, so the only possibility is that the production process is different, or the selection of materials is different. But I have to admit that the taste is still very good. As we walked all the way, Luo Shu and the three of them also came to Carrera. However, Luo Shu came a little bit suddenly today. The iceberg is not here. They are received by a long nose named Shanfang Kaku. This person is one of the 5 largest boatmen in Carrera, but Luo Shu knows that he has others. The first level is the member of CP9. Your ship is now laying the keel. It is estimated that the completion time is about 1 month or so. You can make some comments on those rooms and equipment, and we will try our best to meet your needs without major changes. Although Luo Shu knew his identity, Luo Shu did not show it. After Kaku confirmed Luo Shu and their identities, he took them to dock number 1. At this time, in a clearing, a ship was moving. Construction is underway. After receiving the design drawings handed over by Kaku, Luo Shu also looked at it seriously. Generally speaking, I don't have any requirements, but if I can, it's better to design a more comfortable one. In fact, I don't think the boat needs to be that big, because I am not going to recruit too many people. If it can be easily manipulated, that would be even better. Looking at the drawings in his hand, Luo Shu knew nothing about decoration, let alone shipbuilding, so he simply took a look and then made his own request. These are no problems. After all, there is the technical support of Professor Vegapunk. These are all minor problems. After holding a small notebook and writing down Luo Shu's requirements, Kaku said with a smile, "Marine is true to Luo Shu very fancy." So some of the things on his ship can really be said to be the essence of Marine's sophisticated technology. After knowing this, Luo Shu had nothing to say. After watching them build the boat for a while, he left here, turned around and went to the City of Seven Waters, where he was ready to have a good time. Relax and relax, of course, there must be some training. While Luo Shu was looking for the best hotel in the City of Seven Waters, the news that Luo Shu had left naval headquarters was already on the table of many people. Several ships left New World quietly that night, but no one knew where they went. In the evening, the members of CP9 gathered in the bar of the Center Street Hotel intentionally or unintentionally. This hotel is still very famous in the City of Seven Waters. The owner is a person with long hair like horns, called Bluno. In normal times, he has a simple and honest character and a fair price. They loved them all, but no one knew that he turned out to be a spy. I saw Luo Shu today. Kaku whispered after taking a sip of wine. I know, isn't the shipyard building his ship now? What's the point? When he heard Kaku's words, Rob Lucci, who was sitting next to him, closed his mouth and ventilated back, and he the pigeon on the shoulder also made a corresponding action. But I feel that he seems to know our existence. Kaku's hand shook when he said this. Well, do you want to try it? Khalifa, who was sitting farther away from them, tapped the table lightly, then tucked the hair behind his ear and looked at the two of them. According to the information, he has become observation hockey, and the place where he lives is less than 50 meters away. It is better to pay attention when speaking. But the Lucci here wants to answer. At the time, Bluno walked over, first coughed lightly, and after pouring them wine, he gently tapped the tabletop. This is actually a kind of code. After the code is translated, it is the passage above. Khalifa, test him tomorrow. You are Bingshan's secretary, your identity is the most suitable. Thinking of this, Lucci also knocked on the table, then got up and left. At this time, Luo Shu, to be honest, he didn't know what these people said or did. Because his experience is seeing, not smelling, so he will not be like those who are born with observation hockey. He hears a lot of sounds and messes his head. Observation hockey's hockey is right. The effect of monitoring is very general, it is mainly used for combat. The three of Luo Shu at this time are indeed in a hotel less than 50 meters away from here. At this time, they are sitting here to eat and watch the show. Because this time when they came out, the 250 was a private matter and was on holiday, so although Luo Shu and the others were wearing military uniforms, they didn't wear them. They just wore regular uniforms. No one knew them here, and they were quite comfortable. After a lively dinner, Luo Shu and the others took the simple elevator of the hotel and went to the top floor. Their room was here, but before entering the room, the three of them were a little embarrassed because Luo Shu and the others drove together. 2 rooms. In fact, when I came to open the room in the afternoon, Hina originally planned to open 3 rooms, but Luo Shu went to the counter and just said to open 2 rooms. How to live in 2 rooms, this is a question. To be honest, although she also hopes that Luo Shu can escape from the incident of Ain's departure, but to let her watch Luo Shu continue to sleep with Ingrid, how much her heart as there is something uncomfortable. So after going upstairs, just when she wanted to take Ingrid to live together, Ingrid was already happily pulling Luo Shu out and then into a room. Looking at the directly closed door, Hina sighed, then squeezed her mouth back to her room, took a simple shower, and Hina tangled down on her big bed. This hotel is the best hotel in the city of 7 Waters, and the supporting facilities in the hotel are naturally the best. The Grand Line does not lack giants and tall people. After all, there are several giants in Marine. Therefore, such hotels will prepare very good rooms. Luo Shu and their 2 rooms have very big beds, 6 meters wide and 7 meters long. This is what makes Yingli sleep happy. But lying on this big bed, Hina couldn't fall asleep tossing over and over. After about an hour or so, she sat up suddenly, put on her clothes quietly, opened the door of the room, and came to the door next door. The keyhole of the door here is invisible, and the sound insulation is also good, so Hina can only put her ear tightly on the door and listen carefully to the movement inside. Sure enough, when she listened carefully, there was a sound that she was familiar with. Humph, Hina hummed softly, and Hina continued to listen here. She has done this kind of thing more than once or twice. It can be regarded as a familiar one, but she forgot, Luo Shu has already met observation hockey now. Although his sights and sounds are not the effect of monitoring, how could he not know that there is a person standing at the door? And he also knew that this person was Hina. But even though he knew that Hina was at the door, Luo Shu didn't stop his actions, and the things that could not be described were still going on. About an hour later, Ingrid's slightly louder voice suddenly came from inside, and Hina also let out a sigh of relief outside the door, and it looked like it should be finished. Just as Hina was about to go back, suddenly Luo Shu's door opened. Looking at each other, Hina looked at Luo Shu who was wearing only a bathrobe. She was stupid. When she crossed Luo Shu, she saw that Ingrid in the room was also watching her playfully. Hina swallowed after seeing this scene, and then she wanted to stand up and leave, but was caught by Luo Shu jerked into his arms. You go to bed first, and my adjutant and I will live next door. Turning around, Luo Shu looked at Ingrid and said to her. Actually, you can play on my body. It must be very exciting. Upon hearing Luo Shu's words, Ingrid patted her flat belly and said to Luo Shu grinning. Forget it, after all, this is the first time for her. Luo Shu was suddenly moved when he heard Ingrid's words, but in less than 0.1 second, he shook his head directly. This pair of Hina, it was unfair, so he spoke to Ingrid, and then he took Hina directly back to her room. When Luo Shu closed the door of her room, he directly pressed her against the wall next to her, and looked at Luo Shu who was close at hand. Hina's face was redder than her hair. You, what are you going to do? Looking at Luo Shu shyly, Hina stammered to him, which was completely different from her usual turmoil. Bath, sleep. Luo Shu smiled and said while looking at her with a smile. I've washed it. If you want to wash it, go and wash it. Hina went under Luo Shu's arm, and then went straight back to the bed. Luo Shu didn't embarrass her, but went straight away. In the bathroom, after flushing his sweat and the indescribable liquid, he also returned to the bed and hugged Hina from behind. Hina felt that Luo Shu's bracelet had changed herself, and her body couldn't help but tremble, but after waiting for a long time, Luo Shu didn't move next, which made her a little puzzled. Looking back, she took a look at Luo Shu, and she found that Luo Shu was looking at her with wide-eyed eyes. Are you doing nothing? Hina asked in a low voice looking at Luo Shu. I will respect your ideas. Luo Shu smiled and said to Hina when he heard Hina's words. Hina wants to give it a try. After thinking for a while, Hina raised her head and looked at Luo Shu and said, and Luo Shu's face came closer. You have to think carefully. If you try, I won't let you leave me. At this time, the distance between the two may be less than 1 centimeter. Luo Shu looked at Hina's pretty face and said slowly. And the heat coming out of her face made Hina's face even redder. If you dare to leave Tina, Hina will kill you. Taking Luo Shu bitterly, Hina gritted her teeth, and when she heard her, Luo Shu also leaned over. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.